Call the City Council for July 20th, 2009 to order. First thing on the agenda, as always, is roll call and determination of quorum. Amber, if you would, please.
Waker.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Kroger.
Here.
Costello.
Here.
LaCroix.
Here.
Chapman. Martinson.
Here.
Weifenbach. Waugh.
Here.
Hadcock.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, everyone. Just a reminder, if you do have a cell phone or a pager, if you could please turn that off or put it to vibrate, we'd appreciate it. Also, if you would like to speak on any item on the agenda, we do have speaker request forms. They look like this. They're to your left, my right, over on the press table. If you fill that out, put your name and also the agenda item. That way, as we work our way down the agenda, we'll make sure that we don't overlook you. We'd appreciate it if you'd do that for us. And next, as always, is our invocation. So if everyone would please rise, the invocation will be given by Dale Barcher from the South Dakota Policy Council, and then please remain standing while the Pledge of Allegiance immediately after.
Let's pray. Father, we are so very grateful for another day of life. We're thankful, Lord, for the community in which we live. And in this month of July, Lord, we are reminded of the great freedom and the great value that we have in living in this great country of ours. We realize, Lord, that freedom is never free. It is costly. So tonight, Lord, we are grateful for those who have served our country in one of the finest military ever. We're grateful for those who serve today, both at home and abroad, and we pray tonight for their safety. We are thankful, Lord, for their families. We pray for their families as well. And Lord, tonight we are thankful for our community of faith here in the Rapid City area. We're grateful for the success this last weekend of Hills Alive. It was great for our community financially, and Lord, it was good for the soul, more importantly. We're thankful, Lord, tonight for those who serve here in this city council. We pray for wisdom to rule the day, grace and truth as always. And Lord, will you bless them and their family for the sacrifice of time and energy and expertise that they give to this city council. And now bless the remainder of this time together as we pray in the name of Christ. Amen.
Thank you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Next thing on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. Do we need to have any additional items added to the agenda? I do have a couple here. I have a 2A, which is a request from the Oglala Sioux Tribe. We'll call that a 2A. This will be under general public comments. Then we also have a 52A. This is a request from MDA for a raffle. And then under his mayor's items, I'll have a 55A, which is a report on West Main, and also a 55B, which is basically an FYI on our bleachers. Any additional items we need to add, please turn your light. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had put item number, let me see here, it is 59. I also wanted to make sure that it included direction of 2010 budget.
Okay. That's your item, so when we get to that, you're certainly welcome to discuss that. Any additional items to be added? At this point, let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to add item 59A and call it follow-up and possible action regarding item number 3. And I would also like to add an item 59B called executive session procedures.
Executive session procedures. Okay, I'm going to go to Jason Green, our city attorney. Are we okay on 59E as far as follow-up and possible action?
I think an action item needs to be a little more specific than we might do something. I think it's gotta actually have some substance to it, whether it's to reverse the previous decision or to prohibit parking entirely or allow anybody to park, whatever. But just possible action, I think, is insufficient.
Help me out here, Jason. How would you recommend we deal with this issue? If the council so chooses to act upon this, how do you suggest we proceed?
Well, I think maybe the best way to go about this would be to hear item 3, and if the council wants to do something through unanimous consent, you can add the item at that time, then you'll know exactly what it is you're adding to the agenda for action.
I'm gonna let Sam have the floor here, so
Thank you, Mayor.
go ahead.
I'll just clarify my item to, if I can, to call it reversal of previous decision regarding motorcycle parking in front of the Oasis Lounge.
Okay, Jason?
That item was a resolution, so the council could change that action by a later resolution. To the extent it's a reconsideration, though, the proper notice wasn't given at the prior meeting, so my advice is, if you want to take it up, put it on as something other than reconsideration of the decision.
And procedurally, we'd have to do that through unanimous vote of the council, is that what you're telling me?
At this point, you could do that just by adding it to the agenda with the majority vote of the council.
Okay.
After adoption of the agenda, then you need unanimous consent.
Yeah. Why don't we do this? We'll go ahead and list it as 59A, and what we'll do is, after we listen to item 3, Alderman Quaker, if you want to make a motion to actually deal with this as far as unanimous, putting it so we can
No.
actually...
No, if I could clarify.
Yep, go
I
ahead,
would-
please.
I would like to have an item on the agenda that we can consider tonight, and not have to have a debate about whether we need a unanimous vote on it or not. I would just like to put the item, as I said, I didn't say reconsideration, I said reversal, or to allow motorcycle parking in front of the Oasis Lounge.
Okay. So we're okay? I tell you what, we're gonna allow that under 59A.
Thank you, sir.
Okay? Just want to make sure we do this procedurally correct. Any additional items? So far, we have a 2A, a 52A, a 55A, 55B, 59A, and 59B. Any additional items? If not, the chair will look for a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now is the time to adopt the minutes from the July 6, 2009 City Council meeting. Could we have a motion, please? We have a motion and a second for approval of the minutes from the July 6, 2009 meeting. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are now to awards and recognition. We do have a Veteran of the Month, and I'm going to have you come up and join me. There we go. As always, it's truly a pleasure to recognize those that have served us in the military. And in partnership with the Veterans Coordination Commission, we're pleased to present the July 2009 Veteran of the Month recognition to Jerry L. Thompson. Jerry entered the United States Army in 1967 and served until August 1976. During this time, Jerry served in Vietnam and received several military honors and recognition. Jerry volunteers 3 days a week at the DAV and has spearheaded several raffle funds to raise money for the DAV band. He also volunteers to cook and serve meals with the Veterans Coordination Committee every single month. He's been helpful in coordinating the Chapter 3 members, this is typically 4 to 8 per year, that participate in the fall hunt in Blunt, South Dakota. Always fun to go pheasant hunting. Oh, yeah. Yes, it is. As help allows, Jerry is always willing to help with spring and fall cleanup at the DAV Hall and other Chapter 3 events. He has participated in the Spring Carnival for the Black Hills Veterans Administration Healthcare System in Hot Springs. Jerry is an outstanding war veteran who continues to serve those who have served us in our country. His service to our nation and to other veterans reflects great credit upon him and this recognition as the July 2009 Veteran of the Month. Jerry, congratulations. Jerry promises to just share a couple words with us. Thank you, everybody. Jerry, why don't you come over here and let's get a picture. I know John will always say a few words, so why don't you come up and say a few words about Jerry?
Jerry served in Vietnam 5 tours. 5 tours. So he knows what our troops are going through right now that are serving 3, 4, and upwards of 5. He's been there. I don't know how he got out of there without being shot, but he ducked a lot. But he come out with Bronze Star, and we at Chapter 3 are very proud of him for what he does for all the veterans out here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, everyone. Now is the time for general public comments. This is the time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at tonight's meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. Let's see, is Mr. Yellowbird still here? Kevin, why don't you go ahead and come on up? And Kevin, if you could just identify yourself for the record and state your request, please.
Good evening. Thank you, Rapid City Council members and Mayor Hanks. My name is Kevin Yellowbird Steele. I am the administrative assistant to the president of the Oglala Sioux Tribe, Ms. Teresa Tubals. I am here this evening on a fundraising effort for this year is our annual powwow, and we've come before you tonight as Pine Ridge being a sister city to the city of Rapid City to seek any kind of help and donations and fundraising for our annual powwow. I got a little letter I wrote from the president. Dear members of the Rapid City Council and here Mayor Hanks, I would like to bring before you this year's 24th annual Oglala Lakota Nation Wachipi to be held on July 30th through August 2nd, 2009. Our motto for this year's powwow is honoring the 4 circles. Also, along with the President's theme of unity, peace, and understanding. Our committee is made up of a wonderful group. We have Mr. Wayne Weston, who is our president, myself, Kevin Yellowbird Steele as vice president, secretary is Beverly Pipeline, and our treasurer is Miss Barbara Dullknife. We have 17 others who are sponsoring such an event as a carnival, hand games, royalty contest, parade, youth activities, and many more. Our first day, July 30th, will consist of a Techa Wachipi Okola Kichie recognition. This is where all our elementary school dance clubs come together to represent their dance club in participation in each of the school's point systems. There will also be special dances that are done, such as a chicken dance, a 49 contest, hat and boot specials, and also Saturday and Sunday we'll have special committee dances. We have 4 fun-filled days of activities for our youth and old alike. This year we plan on honoring our oldest elderly in each of our districts, 1 male and 1 female. Seeing as pioneers of the sister city to Rapid City, I come before you to ask for a sponsorship and donation to meet our expenses and make this annual event an enjoyable one for all our relatives, friends, and to make this a special gathering for each and every one. The OST Executive Board would like to thank you for your contribution, and we extend a heartfelt invitation to our annual colorful event.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Lloyd, we normally don't take discussion. Did you have?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would respectfully ask the council to add this to the agenda, which would be 59C, which would be for discussion.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second to add this item as a 59C. 59C. Now, please keep in mind, under our rules, we do need to have a unanimous vote on this to place it on the agenda for discussion. So what we'd be doing is, if you vote affirmatively, it would be placed on the agenda. If we have one dissenting vote, it will not be placed on the agenda. So for discussion purposes, this is placed on the agenda. Any discussion, and we need to limit that strictly to whether or not we want to place it on the agenda. Seeing no further lights. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. This will be placed on as item number 59C. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We do have a number of speaker request forms for the general public comment period. I'm going to call upon Mike Bruner, and this is on the DID. This is actually the Downtown Improvement District. Now, just for point of clarification for those in the audience, this item has not been heard by the City Council yet, but during this period, you're certainly welcome to share any thoughts or concerns.
On behalf of the property owners and the businesses here tonight, and those that couldn't make it here that we have contacted, we want to thank you for your time. We know this wasn't on the agenda. We were informed earlier that it was possibly going to be on, and that's why our purpose was. But we felt it very important that we contact you and let you know some of our feelings ahead of time to help you in your process that you're going to be going through. Destination Rapid City is in the process of encouraging you to adopt their proposal for a Downtown Improvement District, or a DID. As you sit in this council, you're going to be presented with different issues. They usually have 2 different sides to consider in reaching your proper decision. Obviously, this one is no different than any other decision you're going to have to be making. There's been a lot of promotion that a majority of the businesses in the DID boundary zone are in support of this proposal. We are here representing the businesses that we have contacted to offer our thoughts in opposition to the upcoming proposal of a DID. In one day, we were contacted. One day, 2 of us just briefly walked up and down a little bit on 1st and 2nd Street and contacted over 20 businesses. Only 1 business was in favor of this proposal, and 1 was not sure yet of the DID. This is directly opposite of the Destination Rapid City figures of 97% of the people they've contacted that were in favor of it. According to our figures, we're at a 90% that are not in favor of it. And I'm confident that if all the businesses in the boundary zone encompassing not in the core area of Main Street and St. Joe between 5th and 9th Street, if they were contacted outside of this core zone, you would see the same figures of not being in support of the DID. Unfortunately, in taking this position, many businesses that we contact were concerned of being branded not in support of Rapid City and also concerned of the consequences to their businesses, thus remaining silent in their views. No matter what side we're on, I want to encourage everybody that there should be no room for this type of an attitude. We're not saying that a DID might not be needed or a good idea in the core downtown area. Some of the ideas set forth by the DID, they're not bad, such as dealing with employee parking, creating a cleaner, safer, and attractive district, making it more competitive, decreasing crime rates, increased visitors, filling commercial space, improving signage, facades, and streetscapes, marketing the downtown area and making it more appealing with trees, flowers, to offering grants. Those are some of their ideas. What we are saying is that the core downtown of Rapid City of Main Street and St. Joe between 9th and 5th Street desire or need the suggestions of a DID to further their businesses, then they should step up to the plate and fund them themselves. As owners of our own businesses, we need to take care of our own buildings, our own environment, and promotion of our businesses and not expect others to fund those for us. A lot of ideas set forth by the DID could and should be resolved in conjunction with the businesses requiring them themselves, the city helping implementing them easily and effectively, and the Chamber of Commerce marketing and supporting the downtown area. Forming a DID where many pay to support a few is not the way to resolve their needs.
Mr. Brummer, my
Yes.
apologies, I forgot to remind everybody, we do have a 3-minute limit here, so if you could just go, I'm going to let you go ahead and just wrap up your thoughts here.
Okay.
If you-
I relinquish my,
Oh, hang on, we'll let Mr. Brummer just finish up, Vern, and then you'll have the opportunity.
Just got a couple more pages here. As creating a DID along with the bureaucracy and associated salaries with the DID does not seem to be good use of the funds. As with most road districts of a similar nature, they have at least an electric board and volunteers to direct the funds. Events like Thursday nights that we have downtown, those are what we need to do more of and make it easier for those to happen to draw people to our downtown area. If the DID is such a great idea for everyone in the boundary zone, then why hasn't the Destination Rapid City Committee spent more time in contacting all of us outside of this core zone downtown that's in support of it? Many businesses that we've contacted didn't even know the DID was in existence, nor invited to any meetings. Very important, we are good and loyal business of Rapid Cities. A lot of ideas to improve the downtown areas have already been completed in our areas. We're on the periphery of the zone, and we're zoned differently and required to have our own parking and our own trees that we had to spend our dollars to get our businesses going. We already pay taxes.
Mr.
Not-
Brummer, if I could just,
Do you want Vern just to finish reading this, or?
well, you can certainly do that if you'd like to pass
Okay.
that. My apologies. The
if you
problem
don't-
is if we don't follow the 3-minute rule, then, to be honest with you, then we have to basically grant that privilege all the way down. But if you just want to ramp up, and then Mr. Fisher can certainly take off from where you were at.
Okay.
Like I said, if you just want to wrap up real quick.
In essence, let me just, the most important part is there's never a good time to enact additional taxes, and that goes especially for now. We're currently paying Social Security and Medicare taxes as businesses, income taxes, property taxes. Our product costs are going up. Cap and trade will increase our cost to do business. Health insurance is an unknown, and we just can't absorb additional taxes. We're trying to keep our prices competitive along with quality products to attract our customers. If we don't offer customers what they want for a fair price, then they'll go elsewhere.
Why don't you
Putting
let-
anchor stores
Why
downtown.
don't you let Mr. Fisher, 'cause I
Sure.
think you've gone about 6-7 minutes, so why don't you go and let Mr. Fisher, like I say, I want to treat everybody fairly, but
Okay.
if Mr. Fisher can pick up where you're at, and if you want, let me skip
Right.
a couple down, and
Okay.
that way Mr. Fisher can pick up right where you're
Alrighty.
at. Or if Vern's ready, you're certainly welcome to Mr. Fisher. And Vern, if you could just identify yourself for the record, please?
I'm Vern Fisher, and I'm 118 Main Street in Rapid City here, and I've been on that street since 1965. And I've been through this before, and I guess I have to go through it again. But I just the other day, and I never got informed about any of this happening. And just the other day, I had to, on one of my tenants, I had to lower his rent because he just was not making it. And now I just got word day before yesterday or Friday that that I might have to raise his rent back again, but I don't think he can handle it. So I'm going to have a building probably sitting empty if this goes through. And it's a pretty good sized building. And this is just one building. I have other buildings on that same block, and they're kind of struggling too. So I just am here to say I do not want to build the buildings downtown. Let them build their own buildings. Let them spiff up their own buildings so that that they're feasible to do business out of. I feel that if I'm going to be part of this, then the whole city should be part of it. Because I have not asked for anything from the city other than to pay taxes in it and to have my business in it. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. We also have a speaker request form from Gwen Ray. Gwen? And Gwen, if, as always, I just ask if you could just identify yourself for the
You bet.
record, please.
I'm Gwen Ray, and my husband and I have a building down on 7th and Quincy, which doesn't involve the core area, but they do want to tax us extra for our building. And I feel like if we're going to have a good core area, I think it's wonderful what the ideas they've presented, like Mike Brummer mentioned, but I think it should be spread over everybody. I think extra tax on whatever, sales tax or something, but I don't think it should be just a few specified businesses within a little marking area. I don't agree with that. So I just wanted to put in my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Also have a speaker request form from Charles Ray.
I'm Charles Ray, 703 Quincy. I'm just here to say we pay enough property tax. A third of the income off of rental property, more than a third, goes directly for real estate tax. I understand our share would be $700 this year. And it's not so much that I wouldn't want to give $700 to help downtown, but it's not just $700. It's $700 this year. It's $750 next year. $825 the next year. Over 10 years, we're looking at $10,000 by the time you add it all up. Put some interest on it. It's not a small amount. And I think if it's such a wonderful thing for downtown Rapid City to have this, then all the citizens should be taxed equally somehow. And the citizens should vote as to whether it's a good idea or not. Not just have the council vote that you're going to just take a few specified, really a relatively few citizens, that is only commercial property owners, only within the district, and their tenants, and just charge them an extra special tax to support basically the core area. Because we don't need facades, we don't need a lot of those things, and we don't want them. So that's my thoughts on it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. We also have a speaker request form from Mary Rinka. I did get that right, didn't I, Mary?
You did.
Okay.
After all this time, Mayor, you should know. Mary Renka, Black Hills Psychiatry at 528 Quincy Street. I feel like a broken record, but we're opposed to it. When you get the presentation from the DID, and I know Sam was there Monday night, I would just ask that you keep in mind, what is this going to do for a medical business that's on Quincy Street? They have wonderful ideas, but as I talked to some of the people Monday night, they all agreed they could see my point, that it's not going to bring business to us. We take care of our own landscaping, we take care of our own business, we take care of the drunks that come into our office, we take care of the graffiti on our building. I don't think it's fair to tax us to help downtown businesses. And I agree with everything they want to do, and I think it's wonderful, but I think they should pay for it, not those of us who are not going to benefit from it and have our own business issues. We have electronic medical records coming up. It's going to cost us tens of thousands of dollars to institute that. I've not asked the downtown businesses to help us with that. I think it's only fair that they handle what they need, and we'll handle what we need. Thanks for your time, and I really appreciate what you're going to be going through.
Thank you, ma'am. We also have a speaker request form from Don Mattson. And Don, if you just identify yourself for the
Mayor
record,
and
please.
Council, thank you. I have a commercial building at 409 2nd Street, and like Mr. Fisher, was down there when the last business improvement district was put together. And I think what we're talking about here is basically the idea that they have is a good idea. It just doesn't serve the periphery where we're at. When we had the old bid, there was nothing done over on 2nd Street. I don't see anything happening over on 2nd Street, 1st Street, 3rd Street. The downtown core area, yeah, I can understand. But for us to subsidize that part of downtown, and as John told us at last Monday night's meeting, he's catering to downtown restaurants this sidewalk restaurants, and I think that's great to get people downtown. Unfortunately, my tenants that I rent to close their businesses at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So we're dealing with two different types of businesses, and I think that's basically what we're saying here. We're not going to receive the same benefits that the folks that are going to be getting for downtown. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Nice to see you. Let's go to Roger Fry. And there again, Roger, just for the record, if you could state your name, please.
Right. Roger Fry's Paint and Supply on 626 6th Street. Mr. Mayor, council people, thank you for the time. I also am opposed to the DID. I was approached about 4 months ago by a downtown person and talked to me about it, and I didn't express my opinion either way. My biggest concern is right now, and Mr. Mayor, I know you're in favor of meters everywhere except on Main and St. Joe, according to your remarks before the election. My concern is, what are we going to do with the meters downtown? You know, I might consider my business somewhere else if you put meters in front of my street, and I don't want to be involved with the DID then. So I think you better consider and decide what you're going to do with the meters before you decide on this. That's my opinion. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. We also have a speaker request form from Michael Crump. There again, Mr. Crump, if you could just identify yourself for the record, please.
Hello, I'm Michael Crump. I own a business, Downtown Dental Services, at 623 Quincy. I also own the building and lease to 2 tenants. I can echo Mr. Fisher's feelings that one of them is having an awfully hard time and will probably be out of his lease, not renewing by the end of December of this year. You know, originally I renamed my business from my own personal name at the advice of my accountant to make it more valuable when I eventually retire. But the long and short of it was I just wanted it to be recognizable so people would know where to come to find me, because I'm not from this area originally. I've been very privileged, I guess, to move to this community and to raise my 3 children here. I was a little bit surprised to receive in the mail, you know, the letter stating that I would owe this much more. I thought, wow, my taxes went up. But then I started to read it, and I realized it was something over and above that. You know, when I went to dental school in Lincoln, Nebraska, they did something wonderful with the downtown area with the Haymarket District down there. It was impressive. They took a bunch of old buildings and fixed them up, and the businesses have thrived quite well since that time. But I think they spread the load a little more evenly. And I think there's a lopsided effort here. I think it's sort of hidden, and I actually thought, why not walk in there with an open mind? And I went in and I talked to Mr. Brewer, and I thought, you know, I care about the downtown. I would like to see certain areas cleaned up. I'll do what I can. I've been involved with the Thursday night events, even this last weekend event. I've donated different services as much as I could. But what it comes down to, I think, is they're asking a few of us who are often on the very periphery. I'm not even in the downtown district. I'm in a high-density residential area. They're asking us to continually pay year after year for something that really isn't directly benefiting us that much. I mean, I can honestly say just from statistical numbers that I haven't received many new patients because of this. You know, how do you follow that exactly? It's pretty hard, but you know, realistically, I think it's kind of unfair to say that I would directly profit from spending that much over the course of a year, inevitably, you know, throughout the course of my life in a business community here. So that's really all I wanted to say. I think you have to really statistically look at how these people are affected by it, the economy itself, and just take into consideration the fact that, you know, an agenda may be trying to be pushed in a way. And, you know, the good news is, hey, a lot of good things can happen from this. I think we should all just share it a little more evenly. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, I do not have any additional speaker request forms on that yet. Does anyone else wish to speak that has not had the opportunity to speak yet? Okay, Kurt, if you want to go ahead and come up and just identify yourself for the record, please.
My name is Kurt Whitesell Financial Group, 817 9th Street. More of the same. You know, I really, once again, have a question for you in as much that how would this additional tax, benefit a financial planning firm? We take care of our own. We pay for our own parking, as it turned out, thanks to all of our parking issues. but these expenses continue, and I think that's one of the things that is my concern is just, the downtown district, I applaud their efforts. I think there's been very many good things that have taken place. Went down there last Thursday, almost got something to eat. But ultimately, I guess it gets back to who's paying for it. And I think the people that benefit from it should pay for it. And I really don't see where me on 9th Street and our businesses on the outskirts of downtown are going to benefit. Thank you for your efforts.
Thank you. Anyone else that has not had the opportunity to speak? Okay, if not, we will move on. We also have, under item number 3, Margaret Jefferson, reconsideration of the parking in front of the Oasis Lounge. And there, again, if you just identify yourself for the record, please.
My name is Margaret Jefferson, and I own the Oasis Lounge Incorporated at 711 Main Street, downtown. And I'm here tonight because I would like a reconsideration of what was discussed at the Legal and Finance Committee and the council meeting. I was called on Tuesday, June 30th by the Rapid City Police Department to let me know they had approved my parking during the motorcycle rally, but that the Legal and Finance and the council had denied me my application. I would like for you to give me the opportunity to discuss 2 or 3 parking spaces in front of my business. I believe it is not fair to me to be denied when the Firehouse, the Alex Johnson, and supposedly the Sports Rock have been granted what I applied for and was denied. We should show community unity as a whole and give me the same courtesy as the places of business you have already approved for motorcycle parking. My business has been owned and operated by my family since the 1960s. I am only asking for the equal treatment that the Alex Johnson, the Sports Rock, and the Firehouse has gotten about motorcycle parking already. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. I do not have any additional speaker requests. And just so you know, ma'am, that will be taken up as item 59C. Margaret? I have no further speaker request forms during the public comment period. Anyone else have any other issues you'd like to speak to tonight? If not, we will move on. We are on to the consent calendar. This is non-public hearing items, items 4 through 60. The chair would look for a motion to open the public comment period on items 4 through 43, please. 4 through. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We have opened up our public comment period for items 4 through 43. I do have a speaker request form on item number 7 from Barb Lindberg. Item number 7, everyone. And Barb, if you could just state your name for the record.
My name
please.
is Barb Lindberg. I'm from Rapid City, and I'm not sure that you have the Stanley report. I'm not quite sure of your format here, so I'm new on the block. Do you have the Stanley report on the water on number 7 in front of you?
We do not have it in front of us. I believe everyone has it linked on their computers. If you'd like to specifically point us.
This question had come up to me, and I'm not the brightest crayon in the coloring book on math, so you have to just hang with me a while. But I was very concerned with the report, the Stanley Consultant report, and so I got it out and started researching it, and I have some questions on it, mainly because I understand that tonight you're going to be agreeing on accepting that report. Is that true?
The motion on the floor is to acknowledge the source water protection report presentation.
Which means?
I'm going to go Jason Green. That's not formal adoption. It's basically the...
You would accept it into...
Okay, let's ask Jason.
The acknowledgement is simply a recognition that the report has been delivered to the City Council as required by the contract. It doesn't, it's not an adoption of any of the recommendations. That would take separate council action.
And so this is something that you would further on go to like, okay, good, then we're ahead of the program. On the Stanley Consultant, on the first page, and if I'll go over it really quickly, but it's talking about the septic systems and the nitrates that are in the water levels. And so I actually did a study, because the first thing on the Stanley Consultants was that they had said that there's an increase in the nitrate concentrates are steadily increasing. My question was, well, how much? And it stated that this was over a period of 15 years. And so it goes on to say that, among other things, it's on-site water disposal systems, commonly known as septic tanks, that was the problem. Further down there, it says that the EPA's level was, in Rapid City municipal waters, was granted for 10 milligrams per liter. And so, but Rapid City is actually at 1.6. Is that true? Our water source?
I believe that's correct, but I'm looking to
Okay, so
check.
then from there then, I actually pulled the report that was done by Dr. Perry H. Ron, which is from the South Dakota School of Mines. And this is what his report said, and this is where you have to bear with me. He says the wells number that they used in the same Stanley report, number 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, and 11, these wells were fairly consistently increasing from roughly, and this is where it's at, 0.15 to 0.35 milligrams in 15 years. Actually, the report says that it was 12 years. And so in this 12-year point of time, if you look at the increase for that, it is only increased 0.02 or 0.2 of 1 milligram per liter. That's what it's increased. And so actually the Stanley report says that it is a threat to our public water system. And therefore, they are recommending that we do all this septic system, that all the communities in uproar right now. So I'm here to kind of save a little of the harassment maybe that's going to come after these all finish going through. The report goes on to say, so it would take, am I 3 minutes up?
It is.
Okay, just let me give you the last part here.
Go ahead,
it would
please.
take 60 years at this race that the School of Mines said. It would take 60 years for it to increase 1 milligram. 1 milligram. It would take 504 years to increase it to actually the EPA level. And so all the reports that I ask you to really look at in the Stanley Consultant Report is that there is a lot of flaws in it. Our district says it has 116 septic tanks. We have 62. So the Stanley Consultant Report has a lot of errors that I would really consider you looking and researching it out before we have a mass crusade.
Barb, what I would encourage you to do as this report actually comes back for actually formal presentation and adoption, those are great questions, and I would just encourage you to just watch it. It will be on agendas. It will be notified. And so you'll see it coming forward in the future.
Okay, so then I bring a report up and then make copies for you all, or
You can certainly do that.
that would be great. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Public Works or something too.
Yeah.
I'll just ask for a copy if she has, if I'm able to do that.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Aaron Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may, I would like to ask Ms. Lindberg for a copy of the report she has on hand. I'm not sure how.
Okay. What? Okay. Wait, if you just take them down to Amber, wave Amber. Play Vanna for me. Okay. And if you just get them to there, we'll make sure the council gets copies.
Thanks, Barb.
Thank you. Okay. We also have a speaker request form from Clark Jones on item number 19. Item number 19, everyone. And that is adopt the green sustainable recommendations. Mr. Jones.
My name is Clark Jones. I'd like to get this straight. You want to use water, rights for water, a necessity of life, as a punitive weapon to advance sustainability. I refer to page 27 of the report that the agenda says is the plan of recommendations to the council. The report calls for a new city energy policy. Does that include, as seen in sustainability's documents, the use of tax structure as a punitive weapon to make green energy, buildings, and technology competitive with carbon energy? To do what? Make us sustainable? You say the community defines it. I am reading the 2008 book, Commonwealth, Economics for a Crowded Planet by Jeffrey Sachs, director of the Earth Institute at Columbia University and special advisor to the Secretary General of the UN on the Millennium Development Goals. He is at the core of sustainability. Sachs writes, the challenges of sustainable development, protecting the environment, stabilizing the world's population, narrowing the gaps between rich and poor, which he calls convergence, and ending extreme poverty will take center stage. He writes, taken together, the Rio Treaties, the Plan of Action on Population and Development, and the Millennium Development Goals can be called our Millennium Promises for Sustainable Development. The American dream provides people with the freedom to pull themselves out of extreme poverty with the values of family, work, and neighborhood. Sustainability achieves convergence, as it calls it, by confiscation and redistribution of wealth and by tearing down those values. Ronald Reagan said our country was built on cheap energy. He said this in the midst of massive inflation, gas rationing, and lines because of the progressive policies of Jimmy Carter. Reagan called for a tax system that restores incentive for the worker and for industry, and rejection of an energy policy that shares scarcity. He called for an era that will reorder the relationship between citizen and government, that will make government again responsive to the people, that will revitalize the values of family, work, and neighborhood, and that will restore our private and independent social institutions. He said these institutions, not government, are the real sources of our economic and social progress as a people. The placement of beginning public hearings at the end of the process on November 2010 on your schedule, after the final definitions and goals have been set by a select group, gives the appearance of exclusion of contrary opinions and evidence. If you do intend to go ahead with this plan, would you please consider having the public meetings first and throughout the process? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I do not have any additional speaker request forms for items 4 through 43. Anyone else wish to speak to any item 4 through 43 inclusive? If so, if you could come up. If not, the chair would look for a motion to close the public comment period as items 4 through 43, please.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. We are to the consent calendar. This is item 4 through 38. 4 through 38. Does anyone wish to have any item removed from the consent calendar, item 4 through 38? If so, please turn on your light. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to remove item number 19.
Item number 19. Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Aaron Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to remove item 24.
24. And let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Number 18, please.
Item 18. So we are on the consent. Well, let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach. Do you have another
Thank you,
one?
Mr. Mayor. I missed item number 32.
Item 32. Okay, so we are dealing with the consent calendar, item 4 through 38, and there's been requests to remove item 18, 19, 24, and 32. Any additional to be removed? Any additional? If not, the chair would look for a motion to approve the consent calendar, items 4 through 38 inclusive, with the exception of 18, 19, 24, and 32.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Item 18, please, and let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker. Could you read that in for us, please?
Item 18 is to acknowledge the update on the shed located at Jamie Johnson Field. Move to acknowledge.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to acknowledge. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
If I could, I'd just like an update on, I wasn't at Legal and Finance, on what happened with the shed and, or what's happened to the shed, please. Jason,
Dale,
do you have that?
Are you familiar with this? I am. Well, my understanding is that by the end of the month, they're supposed to be moving it out. We are going to be providing them with a dumpster for them to do the demo and put it in, I believe, is it by January or July 31st? So within a couple weeks, it should be gone.
So we do have a report that says July 31st?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Karen. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
The date that I understood was the 25th.
Okay. So very shortly here,
Yes.
the issue will be resolved.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Motion on the floor is to acknowledge. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 19, Alderman Quaker, could you read that in, please?
Item 19 is to adopt the green sustainable recommendations. Mayor, I believe also the intent is to appoint a committee to, is that the intent of this item as well? So I would, I'll yield to the floor.
Okay. Can we have a motion, please? Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The request is to begin the roadmap process and request that a task force be formed, and there is a suggested list of interest areas that the committee thought would be appropriate as that task force is put in place.
Okay, just for point of clarification, Alderman Olson, so that's somewhat different than actually what's on here. It says adopt the green sustainable recommendations. So if you would, I would.
Do you want me to read it in?
Actually, if you could offer a motion.
I would make a motion that we adopt the green sustainable recommendations.
Okay, and as part of that motion, you mentioned the task forces. Did you also want that to be
Yes.
part of the motion?
And we wanted that
Okay.
force to be formed.
Do we have a second, please?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and the motion on the floor is to adopt the green sustainable recommendations and ask that a task force be appointed. Discussion on that motion. Is everyone clear on that motion?
Can I?
Okay, let's take a couple lights here, and then we'll come back around. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had this item pulled simply because I don't understand what we're doing. I mean, we're adopting something that somebody else recommended. I'm not sure. Maybe.
Would you like to?
I mean, if there was a process involved and we're going to come to a point where there was some suggestions or something, I'm not comfortable. I mean, I could acknowledge it, but to adopt something, I don't know if there's a legal difference in that, and maybe I could.
Let's go to Jason Green, our city attorney.
I think that there is. I think when you adopt something, you are taking formal action to say, yes, we agree with this. And there is an item that's linked to the agenda that lays out exactly what it is that's being adopted in this particular case.
Thank you, Mr. Green. But Mr. Mayor, I think that there needs to be more discussion on this to understand it a little bit more clearly.
Did you want to make
At least
a
for me.
motion to continue?
I'd make a substitute motion to continue for an opportunity to discuss it if we're going to. I would be comfortable if we acknowledged it and we wanted to move forward with some, explorations of having maybe the community involved. This would affect a lot of people. I mean, to me, to simply say that we could recommend these things is more widespread than just that. I think if we wanted to continue it or even just acknowledge it, I would be comfortable with that. So I'd make a motion to continue for 30 days.
Okay. Do we have a second? Do we have a second? Motion is to continue this to be the second meeting of August.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on the continuation motion only, please, if you would, please. I'm going to go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can definitely understand the community's concern as well as council members' concern if we were actually asking the council to implement something. And just based on what's linked to the agenda, I think what causes some confusion is that there are recommendations that are linked, and then it also refers to the PowerPoint presentation, which says something in pages 26 through 31, just a slightly bit different than some of the recommendations that are listed. The recommendations that are listed just simply ask the mayor to form a task force, to have a community discussion, to look at some of these things without formally adopting any one thing. So I think that what's being asked by that task force is that we form a committee, have a community conversation, and then start to move that process forward without saying that we should adopt this certain way, just a roadmap to look at how to talk and to start that discussion about how to create a more sustainable community. I'm comfortable with that, but if there needs to be more discussion because we're not fully in agreement or understanding what's there, I can support the continuation motion as well.
Very good. Thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What we're recommending, the recommendation says Aaron Costello, Patty Martinson, and Karen Gunderson Olson recommend the following steps to the Rapid City Council in developing Rapid City as a more green, sustainable community. And these are the 3 items. 1, creation of a community roadmap for implementing green and sustainable. And that roadmap isn't defining any of the items as to what is green and what is sustainable. We're asking our community to do that. We felt strongly that a roadmap merely means a process for getting something started, and that's how we define a roadmap. The second item is a suggested timeline for green sustainable, and again, that is just to give, I believe that tonight there would be some discussion about how long a period of time we were looking at in working on this project, And so then we put forward that suggestion. And finally, item number 3, which is linked to the agenda, which is invite the mayor to appoint with council approval a Green Sustainable Committee or task force, whichever the council would choose to call it. The membership would reflect the widely diverse interests and needs of the community. We'd invite citizen participation in the process via the city's online committee interest application. So anyone in the community via our interest application form could apply to forward their name as a potential member of this task force. And the Green Cities team, of which I am a part, compiled a list of interest, expertise, and stakeholders. And that really is the reference that we were making in the PowerPoint, was just because it was the only hard copy we had of that list. And it doesn't list any individuals. What it lists is the variety of expertise in the community and interests in the community that we as the Green team thought would be the appropriate point of departure.
Okay.
And so what essentially we're asking for is a roadmap process. We haven't defined in any way what that process, what the ultimate goal is, and in response to Mr. Clark, I think we are merely feeling that the city needs to have a conversation about green and sustainable, and the city council is not defining where that conversation is going.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker. The motion on the floor is to continue this item to the second meeting of August. Alderman Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not convinced that a continuation motion is necessary. I think the better thing to do would be to acknowledge what Karen Olson just said, and that this is not an adoption of final enforceable ordinances or resolutions. This is an adoption of the process and the roadmap, and when you have a roadmap, you can drive any number of directions. So I'm going to make a substitute motion to acknowledge the report on green sustainable recommendations and ask for the committee to appointments to be brought forward.
Second.
Okay, we have a second substitute motion and a second to acknowledge the report and to follow through with the recommendations as per linked. Is that correct? Yep. Which would be the creation of a community roadmap for implementation, suggest a timeline, and also invite the mayor to appoint with council approval the committee. Is that correct? Okay, discussion on that motion. Let's go to Patty Martinson.
I guess I just want some clarification because we were talking about adoption of this and acknowledgement of it. Is there a legal difference between the two?
Jason? I think the motion on the floor, what the motion on the floor would be acknowledging the PowerPoint presentation and actually asking the 3 points here for the recommendations that are attached.
Yes, acknowledgement simply says that we recognize the information that has been presented. Adoption is really synonymous with approval. So this motion acknowledges the report that's been brought to you by the 3 committee members and really formalizes their third recommendation, which is the appointment of the committee.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I stated earlier, I agree this is just outlining the process, but the way the motion is on the floor is an acknowledgement of the report and then approval of number 3. So are we not approving the recommendation number 1 and number 2 to create a community roadmap and then suggestion of the timeline that's in here? Because it seems to me that it's been highlighted, let's do number 3, which is to have the mayor appoint this committee. So are we omitting 1 and 2?
If I may, my understanding of the motion maker, no, it would actually include all 3 of these steps. Is that correct, Alderman Quaker? That's what I thought it was. Okay. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Item number 24, Alderman Quaker, if you could please read that in.
Item number 24 is to approve an event permit for summer nights to change previous permit from 6th Street to a section of 7th Street north of Main to Alley A every Thursday night commencing July 16 to September 3, 2009 from 3 p.m. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman, Aaron, did you want to talk? Your light just disappeared. Let's go to Alderman Aaron Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know I'm not the only one who's a little disappointed at this change. Art Alley was a very natural connector between the events on 6th Street and the events on 7th Street. And there were a lot of festivities that have grown in Art Alley that have really enhanced that experience. And in turn, that's grown through more people passing through. So in reading what was submitted to the Legal and Finance Committee, I read that it says this is for the safety of the kids. And I have a tough time believing right off the bat that crossing Main Street to reach the family events or the stage is safer than strolling through Art Alley. The main reason this is moved was because of loading zone complaints from the Hotel Alex Johnson and parking complaints from the Factory Hair Salon. So the question that comes to mind is what other reasonable options were considered, and I don't see Sandy or anyone, and I noticed that Matt Reed left, so there's really no. Perhaps Chief Allender, would you be able to answer any questions as far as what other options were considered with this? If I may, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask Chief Allender a question.
Go ahead. Chief, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman Costello, I was not involved in the decision-making process from Summer Nights. I just simply honored their request and forwarded it to you.
Okay, thank you. I really hope this is a temporary move. I'll be in favor of it simply because I can understand the conflict from the Alex Johnson side and from Dennis at the factory. And who knows, maybe it'll take off and things will work well on the north side of 7th. But I really hope that we can find a solution that is satisfactory to all parties and will once again allow Art Alley to serve as the corridor between these Summer Nights on 7th events. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The people that put on the Summer Nights, is there someone here that can answer a question from me, Mr. Mayor?
I do not
I'm
see
assuming this request came from them.
I believe that is correct. It did, and I don't see anybody in the crowd.
Okay. I'm just understanding I don't understand why we're moving it. I guess can someone answer that? Maybe someone from the Legal and Finance, or does it come as a recommendation to?
Let's go to. I'm going to go to a couple lights, and maybe you'll get your answer there.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson. Well, let's take a couple more lights. I'm going to go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor, and to answer some of those questions, I think Mr. Costello was right when he talked about because of the loading zone there was some parking problem. That's why they decided to move it up, and that's what we heard through Legal and Finance. But I will support Mr. Costello's analogy of what's going on. It is getting busy down there, and that's a great thing. And I think it doesn't really hurt to try the street up. And I think Art Alley is a way for them that will continue to grow, and maybe the other businesses over there on 6th Street will want to eventually come back and want it set up the way it was. But things are really working well, and I think it's an attempt to solve some problems and to move forward. And if in 2 Thursdays this doesn't work, and they want to change back, they'll work with Alex Johnson's and the other salon. Maybe they can come out with some solutions. But that was the analogy we came up with during the Legal and Finance meeting. But maybe somebody from the organization has something different.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion on the floor is for approval. Let's see. I'm going to go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock, who has not had the opportunity to speak yet, and then we'll come back to Alderman Weifenbach.
I think we're trying to grow this event downtown, and if we move it to the north side, I don't think it's as big a deal as what we're talking about. I think Art Alley is still well recognized. People will go there just as much because the event is there. This is a downtown event, and that north side is not very busy on that side at that time of night. So it was very positive, I think, by moving it that way. If it gets bigger and people on 6th Street want to add that to that later because it's not a big deal anymore, that's fine. But I think just keeping it connected to the 7th Street is very positive. So I think Art Alley isn't being affected in a negative way this way. I truly believe what Costello said. It is a connector to 6th Street. But the north side, I think, was a positive move because it was less busy, and they just thought that it would be a easier place to move, like the kids' events and other things, away from that, not to be in a negative impact to 6th Street or anything. So I think it'll work on the north side, and it'll end up being positive both ways.
Yep, thank you. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Did someone come back from the?
No.
My main question is if we're moving it because there's people that don't want it in front of their buildings, and if we're going to move it over to another place, there's going to people be in those areas have the same problem.
There's no buildings.
So they've checked that out, and that's not an issue. Pardon? All right, it doesn't matter to me then. Thanks.
Okay. Let's go to Alderman Aaron Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess it's kind of a bummer that this was on the consent calendar because thus we have no one from Summer Nights here to answer our questions. I guess I would consider a motion to continue, but I'm not sure if that's the right time for this. I do have a question then. I know that when we put the event on 6th Street that it became an issue for rapid transit. So would we then notify rapid transit that 6th Street is once again open for your routes? I guess I haven't looked at the new routes to see if 6th Street is used, but I respectfully request that someone mention that to rapid transit in the event that this does pass.
Yep, we'll make sure that happens.
Thanks.
Any additional comments? Motion on the floor is for approval. Any additional comments? See no further lights. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion passes with 2 noes, 1 from Aaron Costello and Mr. Weifenbach. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr.
Okay, very good. Okay, item number 32, please. Alderman Quaker, could you read that in?
Item number 32 is to approve the annual report on tax increment financing districts. Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on that motion. Okay, let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question. Perhaps Marcia Elkins can help me out on this one. In looking at this spreadsheet, I see that the total valuation is $4,117,000,000, and the 10% valuation that we are allowed under state law is $411,708,000. I'm seeing 34 tax increment financing districts listed on this sheet. 4 of them do not have all the numbers because 2 are centrally, it looks like there's 1 that's centrally assessed, there's 1 overlap, and then there's 2 TIFs, TIF 67 and 70, where we're waiting for numbers from the state. But that number under total says $540,558,137, and if I take that as a percentage of the overall assessed valuation of $4.1 billion, it looks to me like we're at 13% and that we have exceeded our 10%. Did I read the numbers properly? I hope not.
I'm going to go to Marcia Elkins.
Again, I haven't had a chance to research the numbers, and I'd be glad to do that. My guess is that there are several of these districts which overlap, and so the valuation may be showing up in more than one district. But certainly, I'd be glad to review that before your next meeting so we have some additional information. If you want to send this back to committee for some further discussion, we can take a look at that.
I'm the motion maker, but I would like to recommend that somebody offer a substitute to continue this.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I pulled this off the consent calendar there because I had a question. How much property tax did the city of Rapid City forego on collections of this TIF, of these TIFs that we've had? What is that specific number?
Marcia, do you have that available? Yeah. My suggestion is if you want to take us back to legal and finance, we can get that information.
I think I'll make the motion to take it back to legal and finance, and then we can add those 2 items to it.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to send this item back to legal and finance. Any discussion on that motion? Karen, did you want to talk about that? Okay. Motion on the floor is to send this item number 32, back to Legal and Finance. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. That does take us to the end of the consent calendar. We are to the continued consent calendar. This is item 39 through 43 inclusive. I see the note here, Growth Manager has nothing to be removed from the consent calendar. Let me ask, Deb. Okay. Let me ask a question, then we'll come right to you, Deb. Are there any items that any of the council or staff wants removed, item 39 through 43? If not, thank you. Deb, go ahead and ask your question, please.
I apologize, but on 25, I wanted to pull that and I didn't pull 25. And I pushed my light before you started saying your other, but you didn't say
Okay.
it.
The appropriate way to deal with that is to make a motion to reconsider item number 25. And then we'll need to, we'll actually need to take a vote on that. And if the majority of the council members present vote to reconsider, then we'll actually take that up. So.
Okay. If I could make that motion, sir.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to reconsider item number 25, which was approved with the consent calendar. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. We are back to item number 25. Alderman Quaker, could you please read in item number 25, please?
Item number 25 is approve an event permit for Rapid City Downtown Association for motorcycle parking on the north side of Main between 6th and 7th Street, August 3 through 9, 2009. For the sake of discussion, I move approval.
Okay, we have motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
I guess why I'm bringing this up is because of the Oasis. It seems like it made sense for last year that we tried 8th Street on the north side too. 6th Street, we ended up shutting some down, I know, but to be fair to all sides on there, it seemed like it would be easier to make that contiguous on that side from 8th Street to 6th Street on the north side, and then adding north side of, or where was it, 7th Street was added this year, but it seems it would make sense to add that area. And then if it didn't work for that side like it did last year, we also had less numbers last year, that we would take some of that parking away. They did try it last year. We did have a down rally last year, but I believe with 2 or 3 bars on that side, that it would make sense, and I think it would suffice the Oasis and other people on the opposite side to have that area as well. So I don't know if we can add that to it, but I think it would make sense if we're doing it for other businesses down there, and it seems like it would help that side because we do have more businesses open this year on that area than last.
Deb, let me see if I can help her. If you wish to include the block between 7th and 8th Street, my recommendation would be that you offer a substitute motion to approve the event permit in for the Rapid City Downtown Association on the north side of Main Street between 6th and 8th Street. But what I'd also ask, if you're going to make that motion, I would ask that you give the discretion to the police chief and to the mayor that if it's not working, that we can start closing that down, because we won't have time to bring it back to the council.
And I think that's what they did last year. So if that's what they did last year, sir, it seems like it makes sense.
Okay, very good. Do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item came through Legal and Finance, and they're blocking off 2 blocks. Is that right, downtown?
That is correct. On the north side, between 6th and 8th is the motion on the floor.
Does anybody know how many spots that is?
Okay, JJ, I'm going to put you on the spot. There must be about 100, so I would imagine it's probably about 150 spots total. No. How many spots are on one side of a block? Okay, so it'd be a total of about 80 spots.
About 80 spots. Okay. This is the same thing we did last year?
The motion on the floor, I believe that is correct. Last year, we actually closed between 6th and Mount Rushmore Road down. Is not? Let's go to the Chief Allender.
Thank you, Mayor. Last year, you approved the motorcycle parking on the north side of the 600 block of Main Street and also the 800 block on the other side of Mount Rushmore Road. And it was the 800 block that was so slow that mid-rally we converted it back to automobile parking.
This obviously allows the chief to have discretion. the question I have is that I missed last council meeting, I missed a patron or a business owner who asked for 3 spots. It went through on the consent calendar as a decline. I'm thinking that's coming back up tonight. But I just want my colleagues to keep in mind, this is 80 spots, and not one in particular business requested a spot. This is a downtown association, and I understand the importance of the downtown association, but I'm not sure if each business that's in front of these places will have an issue with this or not, but this is 80 spots versus a request that we denied for 3 spots. So, and I think that'll come up later, and I'll take that up later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just to restate the motion on the floor, it is a substitute motion to approve the event permit for Rapid City Downtown Association for motorcycle parking on the north side of Main Street between 6th and 8th Street, and to allow discretion to remove those if unused. Okay? Further discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a poor way to make a plan. We're doing it piecemeal and we're doing it on the fly. This happens every year, and it seems to me the last meeting before the rally starts, we know when the rally is going to be every year. Why don't we do this in advance, or why isn't this brought forward in advance? And I think a more global approach to this could solve some of this, where we wouldn't have to give discretion to the mayor and to the police chief to give back spots, or we haven't talked to those businesses on the 700 block to see if they're okay with this. We haven't talked to anyone. We're just making a plan, it seems to me. I think as we have this discussion, though, in the future, that one of the solutions could be not to give any preference to any one business to create open spots in front of their business, but in every block downtown Rapid City that we create some downtown parking that's available for motorcycles. And you can do that on both sides of the street and create 10 spots here, 10 spots there, so there's just a plethora of spots that are available downtown, as opposed to blocking off entire streets where we're not going to have cars having the ability to park. Again, I'm not opposed, and I think we should do what we can to encourage people to come downtown, bikers and everyone else included during the rally. I just think that this is a poor way to do it, and I will be voting against this plan.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Mr. Chapman on this. I mean, we went through this, and there's been a lot of discussion that we're trying to favor one business owner from another. But in reality, if I remember right, this was Matt that brought this forward, that from CVB through the two block areas last time, and when we talked about it, and then when we reduced it down because it wasn't getting the use. And I had some discussions with some people earlier today about the rally and so forth. You know, I've been going to the rally every year since I can remember. And bikers come downtown to places when there's an event. And we have summer nights on 7th now, and I think it's going to take off if the advertising gets. You know, we could have a busy Thursday night where a lot of the rally members come down and enjoy it, and I can see blocking off more area at that point in time. But at this time, for a whole week, all day long, all night long, 2 areas, I just don't foresee it, because when these guys are coming to town, they have their events planned out, the ride through the hills, everything else, and if we're just shooting in the dark by providing all this, and then we end up taking it back. And as Mr. Chapman says, we need a plan, and a good plan is, as he mentioned during legal and finance, is maybe some of the corner ends on the blocks during the week, and hopefully we, wait and see this Thursday during the rally. If it's taken off, come back to us, and maybe we'll talk about bigger, longer areas. I mean, it could really take off Thursday on 7th during the rally. We could get a lot of business from that. But just throwing out, we want a parking spot in front of our area, or 2 blocks throughout the whole week, I think it's going to create problems for us. So I won't be in support of the motion on the floor.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
In addition to the lack of clarity on this item, this still, if you look at the linked material, it still includes something on 7th Street to, let's see, let me read it exactly. And on 7th, if you go to page 3 of the linked information, it says route area, list all streets and properties over which the event or proportions of the event are expected to travel. Provide motorcycle parking on the north side of Main Street between 6th and 7th Street, and on 7th Street in front of Sports Rock from Apalda to the north edge of the Sports Rock building.
Yep.
So
That was removed at Legal and Finance.
it's still on the linked item,
I
so
don't-
it's not very clear, I guess, as to what it is. So I guess I would not be in favor of the motion on the floor.
Okay, very good. Let's go to Jason Green, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. The recommendation from Legal and Finance was approval of the portion that's under, or that was originally under consideration. The substitute motion expands that area. The fact that the motion is very specific about what is being approved, I think, makes it clear the council's intent is to approve this on Main Street only and not the portion that is on 7th Street. If you wanted to do a separate motion or strike that by amendment or something, you certainly could. I don't believe it's necessary in this particular case.
Okay. Let me answer procedural questions. Anyone wish to speak for Alderwoman Deb Hadcock speaks for a second time, so attorney alike. Seeing no lights, Alderwoman Hadcock.
I appreciate some of the comments on here. Piecemealing together and on the fly is good, but a lot of the events that we do, and you were right, Malcolm, before, we needed to find a bigger plan for downtown and how we do things. I do appreciate that. But 80 spots for all the people that are coming for the rally and making it look motorcycle friendly for downtown is very positive for Rapid City, because it seems like sometimes we seem to skip that out for Rapid City. So downtown wants to make it look like we are very motorcycle friendly. That side of the street has 3 other businesses that would be open at night. That would make a difference. It's 6 days. And I think taking it back, or it's positive, if we're not using them even on 6th Street, or if we're not using them on 7th Street, you're just taking the parking spots and putting where you need them. So in the end, you might not use 80, and you might not use all of those on 6th Street. You might not use all of those on 7th Street. So it's smart for them at this point. We're still piecemealing it together, because that's what they did last year. They took some of the parking away because they didn't need it as much. So what are we doing different than this year, except giving another business downtown, or businesses in this case, because we do have sidewalk cafes now. We do have many things that are going on this year that we didn't have last year. So if 80 spots don't work for downtown and we look motorcycle friendly and we take it away because it doesn't work, we've done it before. And I do know that because last year I watched them take away some of the parking spots. So sometimes on events you got to kind of go with what works. The other thing is downtown is trying to make a difference for the rally, and I think this adds to it. And another business wants to participate that's not on the street. And if you look on your comments, for number 25, it says that on the north side between 6th and 7th, this has been done in the past. However, there are already other requests for other spots downtown. And then the complaints usually were from Alex Johnson area and St. Joe. So it hasn't been in this area. So we've had very positive response for taking parking spots for events in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion on the floor is a substitute motion to approve the event permit for the Rapid City Downtown Association for the motorcycle parking on the north side of Main Street between 6th and 8th Street, and to give discretion if we need to actually move those back into typical car parking. Any further discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. Clarification. So the original proposal was for 6th and 7th Street.
No.
From
No.
6th to Main Street, from 6th to 7th.
Yep, the original motion was on the north side of Main Street between 6th and 7th, so in front of Prairie Edge, all the way down in front of the firehouse, down in front of the old bank building, and then a few spots in front of the Sports Rock. The action at Legal and Finance was to allow the parking on the north side of Main Street between 6th and 7th, but to deny the request to put the spots in front of Sports Rock.
So that's the 600 block of Main Street
That's
only.
actually
That was the original
700
motion.
That'd actually be the 700 block.
Okay, because the
Between
Oasis,
6 and 7, is that 700 block? 600 block, okay.
Okay, so if we support Councilmember Hadcock's motion, that theoretically should take care of the concern, I mean, I realize the Oasis is on the south side, but that should theoretically take care of it. Is that your intent, Deb? Thank you.
Okay. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
I just want to be clear about my comments. I don't disagree that creating at least a visible look of downtown parking for motorcycles during the rally, I think that's a good thing. But what we see is that we get requests piecemeal, as we got from Ms. Jefferson, to say, I want spots in front of my business. This doesn't solve that issue if she believes that she should have spots in front of her building. She's downtown. This request is by the Downtown Association, and I'm saying there's a disconnect in terms of how we're communicating or not communicating as to what we want downtown or what is globally wanted downtown by the businesses downtown, by the association that's representing the businesses. What I'm saying, and why I'm going to not vote for it, is that I'm going to say that we need to, in the future, think about what we're doing long before it gets to mid-July to start talking about what we want for downtown parking for bikes in August. The rally is going to be the same time next year. Why don't we start right after this time, this rally, and start having that conversation as to what we want downtown parking to look like during the rally? That's all I'm saying. I agree that it's a positive thing, and I hope that it passes. I will not be voting for it.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Alderman Chapman, for your comments. I do believe that you're probably correct, but I wanted to make it clear that Mrs. Jefferson last year applied for parking spots in front of her place of business. At that time, no one ever said anything about a global parking plan or anything like that. She was told to come back, reapply for those same spots. Had she had reason or belief that there was going to be a global plan, I'm sure she would have been comfortable with that and made her decision accordingly. And she came forward again this year, as she did last year, because she was told last year that she applied too late for it to happen. She sat back, didn't take the parking spots, came forward this year. So if anybody has a plan, I think she had the best plan, and that was to come forward last year and then come forward again this year. So just to let everybody to clear the record on that and make sure we understand that she did have a plan. So maybe she should make a plan for us. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Okay, we're going to wrap this up here pretty quick. Let's take a couple more lights. Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. Some of the stipulations on the motion is a good one. You know, if they're not going to be used, take them down, and I can agree with that. I guess my question, if I may, Mayor, is to ask Margaret if this motion is approved, is that going to satisfy the motion, or are we going to end up taking up 59B?
59B is on the agenda anyway, so we will be
Yeah.
taking it up. Actually, it's 59C, just for clarification.
Well, we can wait to 59B to ask the question, I guess. We'll get
Okay.
through the motion. Thank you.
Let's go to Alderman Patty Martinson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As far as creating a general downtown parking plan as far as tied to specific events, I think that's well within the ability of the city council to determine, since basically we own the parking spots. So we should be the one to come up with a plan of how special events are going to be handled as far as parking spots. If a particular business wants it for motorcycles or for any other reason, we should have a more defined policy.
Yep, thank you. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask a question of the owner of business at 711 Main.
Why don't you go ahead and state your question,
Okay.
please?
My question is, Margaret, does this help you out?
Okay.
Her answer is no.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Motion on the floor. Let me restate the motion and we'll go to a vote here. Item 25, this is to approve an event permit for the Rapid City Downtown Association for motorcycle parking on the north side of Main Street between 6th and A Street, and to give discretion as far as removing any unused spots. Seeing no further lights, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Olson? Kroger? Costello?
No.
LaCroix?
No.
Chapman?
No.
Martinson? Wyffenbach? Wah? Adcock? Wicker?
No.
Motion passes on a 6-4 vote. Is that correct? Very good. Thank you, everyone, for the discussion. Now, we'll actually revert back to our business, which is our continued consent calendar. This is items 39 through 43. And as I stated earlier, Growth Management has nothing to be removed. Does anyone wish to have any item 39 through 43 inclusive removed from the continued consent calendar? If so, please turn on your light. Seeing none, Chair would look for a motion to approve the consent calendars, item 39 through 43 inclusive. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this motion? Motion on the floor is to approve the consent calendar 39 through 43. All these items will be continued to the August 3rd council meeting. Seeing no further lights, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. We are on to the non-consent items, items 44 through 60. And the Chair will look for a motion to open the public comment period. Items 44 through 60 inclusive, please.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. I have one speaker request form, and that is on item number, hang on a second here. Item number 51. Just so you know, we actually have, Jason, we have basically the same item. We have item 51, which is denied the event permit request for motorcycle, and then we also had placed on the agenda an item, what item number was that? Item number 59A. So my recommendation is, since 59A is an action item, we can go ahead and just dispose of item 51 as we make our way through. What's your recommendation?
Mayor, I believe item 51 was for parking on the north side of the 700 block of Main.
Okay.
That came from Mrs. Jefferson at Legal and Finance. So I
Okay.
think that when you get to that, a tabling motion is probably in order.
Okay, very good. Let's work our way through here. Okay. I am going to go ahead and open up, we do have one speaker request for Margaret, item number 51. Did you wish to speak to this item? Okay. Item number 51, yeah, that was a request for an event permit to park motorcycle parking on the 700 block of Main Street, August 3rd through 9th, and I think we just dealt with that with the motion that was on the floor. We just approved this request.
Yes, but that is not what I want.
Okay. That is.
Can I tell you what I want?
Yes, ma'am. The
Okay.
floor is yours.
Okay. I think that the best thing to do to make everybody happy, including me, is to take away the parking on the 600 block of Main Street in front of the firehouse, and also the parking that you agreed upon for Sports Rock on Wednesday nights, because you, Mayor Hanks, you have a copy of the comment that you made about my business. And it said, I don't have a copy of it with me, I gave all of them away, but it said that those parking spaces in front of my business were for public. And I want to know why my 3 parking spaces are for public and all the parking spaces in the 600 block on the north side are not public, and on 7th Street are not public. And I think what should be done is I think it should all be taken away, everything that has been discussed about the motorcycle parking, and I think what you should do is open it up that if there's a place for a motorcycle to park, that they get to park there without a ticket during rally week, and not pick and choose who's going to get motorcycle parking. And that is going to take care of the big argument that Mr. Chapman said, that maybe we ought to listen to what Margaret has to say. And that I'm not going to be happy with it's not going, it's just not fair. It's not fair what y'all are doing to me. I mean, you are singling me out, and I don't appreciate it, and I am just fighting for my rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have no other speaker request forms. Items 44 through 60. Chair would look for a motion to close. Let me ask just for point of clarification, does anyone else in the audience wish to speak to anything on the non-consent items 44 through 60 inclusive? If not, the chair would look for a motion to close the public comment period, items 44 through 60 inclusive, please.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 44, please.
Item 44 is first reading of ordinance 5526, an ordinance amending 17.06 of the municipal code for rezoning within the described properties requested by the city from no-use district to heavy industrial district located west of Valley Drive and north of South Dakota Highway 44. Move approval of first reading.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 45, please.
Item 45 is first reading of ordinance 5527, an ordinance amending 17.06 of the municipal code for rezoning within the described property requested by the city for rezoning from no-use district to general commercial district located west of Valley Drive and north of South Dakota Highway 44. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval. Item number 45, first reading, ordinance 5527. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 46, please.
Item 46 is first reading of ordinance 5528, an ordinance amending 17.06 of the municipal code for rezoning within the described property requested by the city from no-use district to heavy industrial district located west of Valley Drive and north of South Dakota Highway 44. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Motion is item number 46, first reading, ordinance 5528. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 47, please.
Item 47 is first reading of ordinance 5529, an ordinance amending 17.06 of the municipal code for rezoning within the described property requested by the city from no-use district to light industrial district located west of Valley Drive and north of South Dakota Highway 44. Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second for approval on item number 47, which is first reading of ordinance 5529. Any further discussion on that motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 48, please.
Item 48 is second reading of ordinance 5519, an ordinance revising the off-street parking requirements by amending 17.50.270 of the municipal code. Move approval.
We have a motion and second for approval of second reading of ordinance 5519. Any discussion on that motion? Motion is for approval. Seeing no additional lights, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 49, please.
Item 49 is second reading of ordinance 5520, an ordinance to require majority vote for the election to the offices of mayor and alderman by adding section 1.16.030 to chapter 1.16 of the municipal code. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of second reading ordinance 5520. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Aaron Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In reading over this, it seems that this addition is what currently is the case, so I must misunderstand something. And if I may, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask Jason Green a question.
Sure. Let's go to Jason Green, City Attorney.
What is this changing or amending?
What this ordinance is a response to a change in state law. Under the statutory scheme prior to July 1st, municipalities like Rapid City were required to have runoff elections for the offices of alderman and for mayor. As of July 1st, state law changed and that became optional. So what this ordinance does is it retains the status quo. In order to do that, you have to adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Jason.
Very good. Motion on the floor is for approval, second reading of ordinance 5520. Any additional discussion? Seeing no further lights, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 50, please.
Item number 50 is a request to amend the IDPF, request to amend the Infrastructure Development Partnership Fund Agreement. I yield to the floor.
I believe, Marcia, wasn't there a request to continue this for a couple weeks? Is that the email I saw come through?
Yes, the applicants requested it be continued. Perhaps you'd like to send it back to the Legal and Finance Committee for discussion there.
That would be my motion, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to send this item back to Legal and Finance. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Item number 51, please.
Item number 51 is deny the event permit request for motorcycle parking on the 700 block of Main, August 3 through 9, 2009. Yield to the floor.
Same thing that you brought up.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to table. No discussion on tabling motions. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 52, please.
Item 52 is approval of a policy for requirements for property owner signatures on development applications. Yield to the floor.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval. Item number 52, which is approve a policy for requirements for property owner signature on development applications. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Understanding that this is just a policy, not an ordinance.
That is correct.
My question would be, how do we know who owns the property?
I can go to, Jason, do you want to take that? Marcia, let's go to Marcia Elkins, Growth Management.
We rely on the Director of Equalization's information.
So if a LLC owns a partnership, owns a piece of property, are we gonna ask for articles of incorporation for them to sign? Or are we
Marcia?
just gonna take the, what do they call that, apparent authority?
To date, we've just accepted that when they sign as president of that company, they have to identify their title with it, but we do assume that they're forthright in representing that they have the authority to sign for that group.
Okay, you still have the floor, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
I would just note that in securing this change to our policy, it still would behoove anyone who has a piece of property, and there are some lease agreements that a complete examination of that lease should precede, because that's an important step in terms of the property owner, and particularly in regard to property that is held under a planned commercial or planned residential development. Thank you. I'm in support of the motion on the floor.
Thank you. Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Item number 52. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 52A.
It was a raffle.
Raffle request from MDA.
Move approval.
We have a motion and second to approve a raffle request from MDA. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're on to the Public Works Committee items. Item number 53. Mr. Kroger, if you would, please.
Item number 53 is to approve a waiver of right to protest the appeal of the denial for an exception to waive the requirement to install a sidewalk per city ordinance 12.16.080 on property located at 1770 Center Street, which is the Horst offices. I would move to continue this to August 3rd to allow the warrant to be signed.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue this item to the August 3rd, 2009 City Council meeting. Discussion on the continuation motion, please. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
In trying to understand this, I am not in support of waiving the installation of sidewalks. So what is the appropriate motion vote in my?
Well, the motion actually tonight is to continue this, so there's no final action on this. By continuing it, I believe what they're attempting to do is put the warp ahead of the approval of the exception.
Okay,
so
thank you.
Really, tonight, there's no formal action, so other than continuing it.
I'll be in support of continuing.
Okay, very good. Motion on the floor is to continue this item to the August 3rd, 2009 City Council meeting. Any discussion on that motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're on to bids. Mr. Preston.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have two items on the bids this evening. The first one is a landfill scale approach repair project. We received 3 bids as listed. Staff is recommending accepting the bid from Simon Contractors of South Dakota Incorporated in an amount of $39,344.20.
We have a motion, second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes.
Second item is the current model year backhoe. We received 2 bids as listed. Staff is recommending accepting the bid from Butler Machinery Company in amount of $122,068.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Mr. Tech, did you remember to put our informal quote bid on the agenda tonight?
Item 60.
Item 60? Very good, thank you. I was just looking through my paperwork and I saw that. Normally we take that up with bids. Okay. That does take us to mayor's items. I had a 55A and a 55B. I just wanted to give the council just a very quick heads up. Everyone's probably aware that we did have 2 fatalities down on West Main Street. I just wanted to give the council heads up that I have asked the Public Works Department to take a look at that stretch between Cross Street and West Street and determine whether or not it's appropriate to actually create a raised medium there so there's no left turn. They'll be coming back, I would imagine, within 30 days with the report. Okay? Any questions on that? Here again, that's just an FYI. Second thing, 55B, and there again, this is just basically information for the council. We did get a request in from Dickinson, North Dakota, to use 4 sections of our portable bleachers. They're actually in the middle of remodeling their stadium up there. They're behind schedule, and they're desperately looking for seats. Mr. Preston did bring forward a proposal as far as rental fees, and it amounts to about $3,000 is what we would actually be charging those. I just wanted to bring this to the council's attention to see if there was any concern. The things that I've already directed the city attorneys to do is the fact that we need to make sure that in that agreement that they are totally liable from the time they pick it up, that any damages, including up to the destruction, would be reimbursed from the college. Okay? With that, there's a couple lights. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to assume anything, but I'm probably pretty sure you checked this. We don't have any use for them during that same time
No,
frame.
that is correct. We have
I'm
checked.
comfortable with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
As you've calculated what's being charged for the use of these, I assume that the wear and tear on the bleachers would be a consideration within the price of that they would be paying, because that's that's a trip that's considerably longer than any other kinds of transportations that we normally do with those bleachers.
Yes. The normal rental is $500, and the total fee that we're proposing to charge is $2,900. So, yes, that is certainly. And Mr. Preston, and I think I just misquoted the $500 because I think that's per time period. Go ahead, Mr. Preston.
Thank you, Mayor. It's $150 per section typically. Since it's the length of time, we're going to do $500 per section, plus there is some transportation charges and some labor, administrative charges, et cetera, included in that figure for 4 sections.
Yep. To answer the question, yes, we did make sure that we were covering our cost and that we're fully covered if there's any damage, either in transit or during use. So, if not, that was there again. That was just a report. From there, let's see. Let's go to council items and liaison reports. Item number 56, change of law for state professional service contracts. This is Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to continue this item to the next Legal and Finance to give it the opportunity to go through, or through the Public Works, I'm sorry, to go through the Public Works and then back to the council. So,
Okay. Do
if
we
my
have a
colleagues
second?
would-
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue item number 56, actually send it back to Public Works. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 57 is an update on the South Creek drainage issue. Alderman Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted, I know that this thing got moved to CIP, and I just wanted to see where it was in the lineup
Okay.
for timeframes.
Let's go to Mr. Tech.
Thank you, Mayor. The South Creek Drainage Project was included in the CIP in the year 2014, and funding of $140,000 was identified to deal with that issue.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Very good. Next item, item number 58, update on letters that went out to Franklin Street residents with private sewers. Alderman Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted an update on when the letters went out and what kind of response we got for the people that be identified that had the private lines on Franklin Street in those areas there that had the private lines.
Okay, let's go to Mr. Tech.
Thank you, Mayor. There were 876 letters for non-conforming sewer and water lines that were sent out within the last month. Of those 876, the Public Works Department's received about 50 to 60 inquiries regarding that. As far as any projects identified at this time, none have been identified. The purpose of the letters was just to notify those.
Mr. Mayor, I think we're talking about two different items. I'm talking about the private sewer lines, not non-conforming, but private, the ones that the city has identified as private. The council had passed I don't know if it was a resolution or what it was, to actually write letters to the people in those areas identifying the fact that they had a private sewer line, and if that sewer line became a problem, they would be assessed to fix it. And I think maybe those are two different items.
Let's go to Dale Tech. I thought they were basically non-conforming sewer lines are the same as.
I don't have any direct knowledge of the.
I would be willing to continue this to the next Public Works meeting. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue item number 58 to the next Public Works Committee meeting. And discussion on that motion. Deb, did you wish to speak to the continuation motion?
If I could.
Okay, go
Just a
ahead.
question. Is non-conforming and private the same? Or are we confusing the difference? Because I think that's what we said, is to send them to the non-conforming, which was people that have private water and sewer lines. So are we confusing Mr. Weifenbach with this and me as well?
Let's go to Mr. Tech. Are you following any of this?
Aren't they the same?
I believe that there are two separate issues. However, I believe the Public Works Department has followed through with the requirement that was passed by an ordinance amendment regarding the 70-30 cost share program, and those letters were to be sent out to the non-conforming. As far as any letters being sent to any private sewer mains or water mains, that has not been done, nor has staff been directed to do that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Yes, I'm confused then, Mayor.
Okay.
If we're continuing something on Franklin Street that's to do with letters, those, if I could ask Dale a question?
Go ahead.
Then wasn't that non-conforming and not private? Because the private was from your house to the sewer line, if I'm correct, and the non-conforming would be anything adding to that was not on the main sewer line.
Dale?
Thank you, Mayor. That is correct. A non-conforming line, by definition, is either a combined line where two people are hooked into the same service line before it hooks to the main, or if it crosses somebody else's property, or if it runs parallel with the right-of-way. That's a non-conforming service line. I think what Mr. Weifenbach's referring to is actually a private main, which is a different thing.
Okay. Motion on the floor is to continue. Anything else, Deb?
Yeah, just make sure we have that defined so we're
Okay.
where
We'll
that's
make sure,
going.
we'll make
so
sure it's defined when we bring up the debate of Public Works.
Thank you.
Motion on the floor is to send this back to Public Works. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. Item number 59, update on the current sales tax revenue. Mr. Weifenbach, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I put this on a couple different times because I keep getting confused, and evidently it's my fourth item, so I must have had too much time on my hands last week. But this item originally came to my attention when we started to see a downslide in sales tax revenues, and according to the state website, as of June, the state sales tax revenues were down about 1.5%, which is a little bit different than our accounting. Obviously, you have to take out administration fees, and there's a few other changes that need to be made, and you have to almost be an accountant to figure out all those numbers. And so that's why I keep asking for these updates, because my concern is that if where the numbers are today, we have a cumulative 3% decrease in sales tax revenues, which interprets into we were budgeting on a 4% increase, so we actually have a 7% shortfall. And I don't think it would be of good or fiscal responsibility to budget into the reserves or unencumbered cash. And trying to extrapolate these numbers, I called Mr. Preston today, so I think that he may have some explanation. I can't read these without my readers. And
Okay.
I looked for them in my
Mr.
bag.
Preston, can you put them up on the board, please? Bring us some clarity, would you?
With sincerity?
No, bring us some clarity.
Oh, okay.
With sincerity, yes.
Mr. Mayor, I still have the floor, is that correct?
Yes, sir, you do.
I just wanted to see if we, after he gave his presentation, if we had a little bit slightly different direction we may want to talk about or move into.
If it's all right, Alderman Weifenbach, I tell you what, let's go and have him give the presentation, and you'll retain the floor.
Yeah, this is flipped up. It should be flipped up, right? It was working earlier.
Let's see how they're doing. Are we having technical problems? Okay, tell you what, let's take a 5-minute recess. And I tell you what, we're going to take it 7. We'll be back at 5 after 9. 5 after 9. We're in recess.
Yeah.
Now what? Mine gonna work?
Is this the right one? Is this what it was? Thanks, Tom. Coordinator releases.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the city council meeting back to order. We have everybody here? Pretty close? Okay, very good. Mr. Preston, do you have your technical glitches worked out?
I do.
Okay, you have the floor. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. What I have up on the overhead shows the sales tax for the payment that we received last Thursday. And the way sales tax work is that there is a reporting period, which is when the sales are made. For example, if sales are made in January, I can move that up.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you move it up, we can't see the numbers for the first quarter. There we go. Thank you.
Okay. And this is, as I said, this was for the payment that we received here last week, I believe about the 16th of July. And the way sales tax works is there's a reporting period, which is when the sales are actually made. Example, if sales are made in January, that is the reporting period, but they are actually filed with the state the following month, which would be February, and then the city receives their payment in March. So we have a reporting period, a filing period, and then actually when you get your payment. So it gets a little bit confusing when we talk about this. This report is the latest, is through the end of May. It is a payment we received on the 16th of July, and it does show that compared to a year ago, the city is down 3%. And that, again, I want to emphasize that is through sales made in May. Now, Mr. Weifenbach had referred to the state's website. I believe the sheet he's looking at was like this. What they show up there is actually month-to-month comparison, and that is for the total sales tax filed for the city, which includes General Fund 2012, CIP, .16, and BBB. This the report that we always show is the general fund. That's one we've been doing for years, and that shows the comparison for that. So there's a difference there. That's their total. Ours is just the general fund. The other thing is that their total, what they put on the website, that's prior to the state deducting administrative fees for handling the sales tax. It's prior to the food refund that was implemented a few years ago. And there's also some miscellaneous adjustments and prior year's rates that we have to take in consideration. And lastly, I'm going to refer you to the report that should be, was in your box. We put it in Friday. You should have had it there this morning. Was addressed to Mr. Quaker because his question last meeting had to do with why our numbers were different. And so essentially what we did was go through the figures that he gave us, contacted the state, took their figures as far as what the administrative fees were. We deducted those, the food refund fees, and made the adjustments for the rate. If you'd look at the second page, that's the spreadsheet that we have that shows the state's figures, and then administrative fees, the food refund, there's a miscellaneous, and then there's an old tax rate which we reduce off that, and we get that through our audited returns. That figure over here takes the state, makes those two deductions and adjustments, and that's that figure, and this is what we report on our sales tax, and they do equal throughout here. And you see on the far right-hand side, you'll see that's the January, and that the top one is our December reporting period, which is actually for us in a previous fiscal year. So they're not going to match that way when the January one is in there. So I wanted to point that out. All the supporting document is attached to those figures. So that kind of a quick explanation of how the comparison to what the state has on their website and what the city reports, and explanations for some of the differences.
Okay. Alderman Weifenbach, you still have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to make sure that the council as a whole understands this as we start moving in towards the budget times, and if there's, right now our projected budget is a 1% and a 1%, which means a 1% over the actual of 2008, which today we are currently down 3%. Understanding that, you know, this is like a business cycle type thing here, and that what we've been into is we were on a very high with the business cycle throughout the nation and the city, and now we're starting to come down off that high a little bit, which is going to have a tendency to have some level of decreases. Basically, what goes up must come down, and I just wanted to make sure that the council had the full information they needed. And if I had a question for Mr. Preston, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, please.
My question would be, just for instance, if the 3% ended up 3% decrease, how would that affect our budget for 2009?
Mr. Preston?
Okay. Based on if the total at the end of the year, right now we're down about $231,000 from where we were a year ago. At the end of the year, if we were down 3%, based on some of the figures that Mr. Quaker used last time, and that's close to ones we use, which is for every percentage is about $200,000. we'd be about $600,000 less than what we collected in 2008. Mayor, you want to correct me on that?
Well, I do, because of the fact that I think we're oversimplifying. The 2009 budget was based upon what we call 4 plus 4. We took the last actual year that we got sales tax from, which was in 2007. To that, we add 4% to account for 2008 and 4% into 2009. So you can't just say 4% in 2009 because of the fact in 2008 we were counting on a 4% increase. We saw a 6% increase. So that helps soften the blow a little bit. Not to say that we're not down a little bit, but the reality of it is you can't look just at the previous year. You have to look at the last actual year of returns that we received. So if you start with 2007, add 4%, and then for 2009 you add 4%. You also have to take into account we were 2% above our estimate in 2008. So best way to analogize that is if we come in at the end of the year at say 2% down, or say we're perfectly flat, that means we'd be about 2% down from our projected, or about $400,000. And I know better than do math in public, but I think that's fairly close. Just a suggestion, I think these are very, very good questions. I think what we'll do is I'll work with council leadership, and as we get into the budgetary process, why don't we spend the first half an hour talking about revenue projections and so forth on the front side of the budget hearings. That way everybody can be very clear of the numbers that we used in the past, numbers that we'll be using in the proposed 2010 budget. We'll just spend some time dealing with those numbers. Alderman Weifenbach, you still have the floor, sir.
I will yield the floor to my colleagues, and I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, and I have some express concerns that this business cycle may continue a little bit, as business cycles do. So, thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go to... Well, he's been talking so much, I thought I'd just go back to him. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. Clarification, my understanding is that, well, first of all, the numbers that I had presented a few weeks ago, unfortunately, the numbers that we got the other day were a little bit worse than the numbers that I'd presented a few weeks ago. But what I had said a few weeks ago, and I was told that I didn't have my facts, but I'd gotten it straight from the state's website, and I verified with the Secretary of Revenue's office, and the numbers that I have are correct in the sense that they're before the administrative fees are calculated out, and they include all of the various sources of sales tax. But I think that it's important that we adequately explain up front, before we get so close to a budget cycle, how the sales tax numbers work and how all the reporting is done, because this is an important topic. And you know, I did my homework, did my research, and I wasn't very appreciative of being told I didn't have my facts when I had verified with the Department of Revenue. But I think that going forward, now that we have the additional information indicating that we could be 3% down, and if that holds through the end of the year, we wouldn't be down $600,000. We would be down $1.4 million, because there was a 4% assumption of sales tax revenue increase built in to the 2009 budget. So 4% plus 3% is 7%. So I think that that's where I have a concern is that there was that 4% growth factor built in to the 2009 budget and a smaller growth factor built into 2010. We need to correct that. So I'm going to offer a motion for the sake of moving this process forward, and that is to ask that the 2010 budget be recalculated to assume a 0% increase in sales tax revenue for 2010 over 2009, and a 0% increase for 2009 over 2008.
Okay. I'm going to go to Jason Green. This was not listed on the agenda for action tonight. Can we take action on this tonight? because this was a discussion item, an update on current sales tax. Oh, this, Jason?
I believe the item is listed as update on sales tax figures. And if I'm incorrect about how it's listed on the agenda, please correct me. But if it's just an update on the sales tax figures, I think you've received that report. If there is a substantive action that the council wants to take, I would recommend that you run that through your normal committee process.
Okay. Yeah, just for point of clarification, Alderman Weifenbach at the beginning of the meeting did ask for direction on the 2010 budget. So,
If that's the case, then I think that there probably is an appropriate agenda item to take action on regarding the budget.
okay. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to I'm sorry, let's see. We have a motion on the floor. We have a second. Let's go discussion. Okay, I'll try.
I can do it.
The motion on the floor is to recalculate the 2010 revenue projections to a 0% growth and to go back and retrospectively adjust the 2009 back to a 2%. Is that correct, Alderman Quaker?
Let me clarify.
Okay,
Can I
go ahead.
clarify?
Yes, please.
My motion is to ask that the 2010 budget be recalculated to assume a 0% increase in sales tax revenue for 2010 over 2009 and a 0% increase for 2009 over 2008. So instead of 4 plus 1,
0
we
plus
would have
0.
0 plus 0.
Gotcha. Okay. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the mayor is correct in that give some latitude to the mayor and council leadership to come up with exactly what we're going to do during those budget hearings during the 10th through the 12th of August. I don't want the council, I don't disagree that there are dire straits financially for a lot of communities across the country. I think Rapid City probably sits better than most, but there's still some challenges out here that we need to be aware of. And budgeting is really about trending. But let's not lose sight of what our role is, the council's role. The mayor has done his role in proposing a budget. That's the mayor's role. If he wants to do this, or we direct him to do this, I guess he will go back and recalculate. But now the mayor has handed the budget off to the council. It's our role, if we want to make those changes to the budget, then it's our role to do that. And I say that let's start that process when we start it in August. If the council wants to have this change done now, we are going to have work sessions. Let us go through that process of changing that process or changing what the outcome of the budget is as we go through the process. That would be my recommendation to the council.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. I just kind of piggyback on what Malcolm said right there. But one of the things I do want to recognize is that at least we've got some good discussion. I mean, we got council members asking questions this time in early. You know, I'm not prepared to move forward on this type without going through the process of us all meeting together, all getting the information, and then making a joint decision together. But straight from the dais tonight, no. But I mean, I do say that council members are doing a good job of asking questions and good questions, and we're getting some answers, and let's follow through the process and go through the work sessions, and I think we'll have a good year. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in agreement with what has been, the comments that have been made in terms of preparing to vote on this particular item. I do recognize that important questions have been raised, so I'm in agreement with that. But I'm uncomfortable voting on this particular item until we've had a little fuller discussion, and so I will be voting no. But I do understand my colleagues who are concerned that we continue to manage our house well and take the taxpayers, give full consideration to the sales tax discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
I think some of the questions tonight are good as well. With council leadership and taking direction, that's good too, but some of the things that we bring up early I think are good as well. Kind of let some of the council members see what some of these differences or what are these questions that are being asked, how they are put into the budget. So some of it I'm seeing both sides of this tonight, where it's nice to ask questions early, so then by the time we get to the budget, we're good to go. Because then, when you get to budget and you have those questions, it's a lot harder to look all that stuff up in the couple days or 3 days that we do stuff. So I just asked the question to Bill, if you don't mind, Bill. He does a lot of accounting stuff. If it would actually hurt us to see some of those things, and in some cases, I think I would like to see some of this stuff early. If it's in this case and it makes a difference for me making the difference, I would like some of this stuff early instead of being presented it all at once at the budget. So I'm kind of listening to the discussion and going where it seems the most positive.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Aaron Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I haven't had the pleasure of going through a budget process before, so I fall back on my default mode, which is where I like to have as much information at my fingertips as possible. And I guess I fully respect Alderman Chapman's comments about how we could take this up during the 2 or 3 days, but if we have this as a vision of something we're going to do, I personally view it as sort of, as getting a head start, where if this is information that we want and information that we're going to want that second week of August, then let's get it prepared now so we can look it over, we can be prepared to ask, the even harder questions and be prepared for some very strong conversation dialogue on just how we prepare the budget based on the economy and how it's moving. So I will be in favor of this motion. I guess one question would be in order. Mr. Mayor, I assume the Finance Office would be responsible for getting this information together?
Yes. As a matter of fact, let me just make a point here, because I think there seems to be some confusion. If you actually look at the discs that were provided to you about a week ago, all this information is on there. The information that has been requested is on there. The only thing new with the report that Jim Preston, our City Finance Officer, showed tonight was there was an additional check. And there again, my recommendation would be to wait until we start the budgetary process for 2 reasons. Number one is the fact that instead of reacting, it gives us a little bit additional time to get another check or 2 in from the state. Because with one check, it can make all the difference in the world. And let me give you an example. If you look at the numbers, we're down about 3%. The vast majority of the 3% is greatly attributable to the month of March, which we had 3 blizzards. About 150,000 of the 231,000 I think that's a number, is attributable to March because we had those blizzards. If we wait and we allow the presentation during the budget hearings and get a couple more checks, and we'll have a lot better feel for where we're at instead of basing everything off the first 4 months, the first quarter of the year. So all the comments have been very good. I share the concerns, but like I say, I don't think there's any reason to overreact, and I think we take our time, look at the information, and the best information we're going to have is the most up-to-date information prior to the budget hearings. And I'm sorry for the editorial. Alderman
It happens occasionally.
Costello, you have the floor,
We're
sir.
all guilty. I guess, so if I understand correctly, Mr. Mayor, what you're saying is that the information, if we were to have a 0% increase for 2010, that is on our disc? Because that's one of the things that's being asked for here.
No. What's on the disc are the revenue, all the revenue projections based on the 1+1.
Right.
I can tell you it's very simple to adjust it. All you have to do is basically take about $400,000, about $390,000 off that revenue projection.
Right. And when we talk revenue projections, we're hoping that, I guess from what I just understood from what you said, Mr. Mayor, was that we could, we're hoping that these next couple weeks make up for everything we lost in March. And at the same time, we have no crystal ball to see how the rest of the year is going to go. So I would view it as, being perhaps reckless is probably too strong of a word. I don't think that it's, in other words, perhaps prudent comes in, that to me, I just lost my train of thought.
We can come back to you.
All right, I yield the floor. Thank you.
Very good. Let's go to Alderman Bill Waugh.
Is it this new technology? Thank you, Mayor. I have a few comments, and I also have a question for the finance officer. Mr. Preston, when we start the budgeting process in our meetings, how much data will we have from the state? Will the state have our tax revenues through June? Because we're through May now.
Mr. Preston?
Thank you, Mayor. We would give probably one more payment, because they've been generally coming about the 16th or 17th. We're going to start the hearing on August 10th, so we would get one more check, which would be for the first half of June.
So that would not encompass the whole month of June?
No, it would not.
So by the time we sit down and start discussing the budget, we will not have accurate numbers then through June?
No.
When I sat on the council 4 years ago, I always thought our budgeting process was very difficult, because we're trying to budget for next year without total numbers for this year, and it is very difficult. What Sam is requesting is 0-0, is my understanding. So how difficult would it be to have those numbers 0 to 0 and 10 to 09 and 09 to 08, so we could see what kind of cuts we would have to make out of the departments proportionally?
Let's go to Mr. Preston.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it'd be fairly easy. All you do is take 2008 actual, you plug that figure into the 2009, and you also plug the 2008 into 2010. That would be a zeros plus 0.
So if we could get that information through council leadership and have that information, then we really wouldn't need to vote on this motion, I mean, in favor of this motion. I mean, we're going to get that information, unless, if I could direct a question at Alderman Quaker.
Go ahead, please.
Are you asking for the mayor and the department heads to completely rewrite the budget based on 0-0?
Alderman Quaker, do you understand the question? Do you wish to answer the question?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay. I was asking for the budget to be recalculated, yes, and to be rewritten, yes, but I would be happy to settle for something that gets us close to that, so we can have a good discussion and be prepared for the discussion.
Okay. I would be comfortable sitting down into the budgeting process, having that information, and so if we can be assured we're going to get that information, then I would vote no on the motion on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too think that we make the best decisions when we have the best information and the most information possible. That wasn't my intent to say let the process play out, but I think if we want to see 0-0, I think we try to take the role of the mayor out of his hands if we say, now go back and redo this. The mayor has said, based on his understanding and what he's seen in dealing with the finance office and dealing with the state, this is the budget that he proposes. It's our responsibility then to pass a budget. And if we want to say, nope, we disagree with what you've proposed, and we want to go from 0-0 for the next year, looking back and then looking forward, I think that's absolutely up to us. And I agree with Bill that if we want to see those numbers in addition to what the mayor proposed, then absolutely, let's look at those numbers as well. I am not for having the mayor and the finance office go back and recalculate all those figures today. That wouldn't be what the mayor proposed. If we disagree with him, by all means, let's tear his budget apart, and as we pass the budget, let the council do the heavy lifting of what we're supposed to do, which is to pass the budget. If we want to disagree with what he came up with, that's ours. He did his. It's on us now to do that. So that's what I was saying. Just a comment about how we budget, and I do think it's difficult as well, and I've had conversations with council members, I would be prepared to start the budget process for 2011 as soon as we pass the 2010 budget. I think what I'm hearing the council say is that there's not enough input from the council in advance. The way that we get ahead of that process is come October, the council starts to say, this is the direction that we would like to see the city go, and then give the mayor direction to say, next year, this is what we want to see. And I think that process should start as early as October. And Lloyd and I have had this discussion, and I'm prepared as vice president of the council to make that recommendation to the council and have that play out. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with starting the budget process as early as possible, but this is necessary to get us to have this conversation so we understand it and we don't spend half a day trying to understand what we're voting on. So I appreciate everyone's comments, and I'm glad that this brought this conversation to this level. Absolutely. But I had a question for Mr. Preston in regards to June numbers. And Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, please.
Jim, looking on the state website, they've reported June numbers. Now, are you're talking about those June numbers would be May sales? Is that the reason that Mr. Wall had asked the question about whether we would have those numbers available?
Mr. Preston.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. What they have on their website is what their filing period for June, which is our reporting period for May, and that's the actual sales made in May, and that's what they put on the website in June, and we actually start receiving payments in July.
Okay, so those numbers would be as they're updated. Because I just want to make the comment that the numbers that I've seen on the website are not as bad as the numbers that you've quoted today. The numbers that were on the website were down 1.5, and you're saying we're down 3. So I just want to make sure my colleagues understand that. And moving forward, I appreciate the conversation that we've had tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
I understand that I'm pretty good at counting by now. If this motion fails, it's my understanding that the information will still be brought to the budget regarding what the impact would be of doing a 0-0 instead of a 4+1, and that also then means that the department heads will identify areas where they can cut if we need to go to a 0-0, so that we don't find ourselves in the position at the budget of just throwing up our hands and saying, oh, let's just spend into our reserves and unencumbered cash and deal with it next year. I do not want that to happen, and that's why I offered a pretty bold motion tonight to try to drive the point home that we can't wait until the budget hearings and hope that it's all going to work out, because Alderman Wah's question pointed out we may have one more check, but we're certainly not going to have all the June numbers. So I'm going to ask a pointed question to the mayor and finance officer, and that is, are you willing to separately, instead of bringing forward an entirely new budget, if you're willing to bring forward a list of itemized possible cuts and what the higher level numbers would be as well, then I'm willing to withdraw my motion.
That's
Let me answer that. I think it would be inappropriate for me to, the city council has my proposed budget. From this point on, and just so everyone understands the role that the mayor plays in the budgetary process and the role that the council plays. The mayor under state statute is required to provide a balanced budget. That has been proposed for the city council. From this point forward, the budget belongs to the council. It's not my budget anymore. The budget belongs to the city council. I will tell you, and I've gone through this exercise both on the city council and also in the state legislature. It's very difficult because what we're talking about is trying to look into a crystal ball and try and project what the revenues are, not a month down the road, but 6 months to 18 months in advance. So what I did, and I just looked this up, in the past what we've always used as far as revenue projections is we've used anywhere from 3 + 3 to 4 + 4 to 7. So I took an extremely conservative approach of 1 + 1. Now keep in mind is the fact that 1 + 1 means that in both 2009 and in 2010, what I'm saying is we're projecting a 1% growth or 2% for both years. In other words, collectively for both years, 1% a year, which is about as conservative as you can really be. Now, you can go to a 0-0, but the reality of it is when you're looking in that crystal ball, looking 12 to 18 months out in the future, the best thing you can do is look at historical data trends. And that's exactly what we did. We looked at historical data trends. Since 1972, when we first started collecting sales taxes in the city of Rapid City, we've had 2 years where we've actually had a negative growth in sales tax. The largest drop in sales tax was 1%, followed by the very next year of a 14% increase in sales tax. And there again, all that information was provided for you on the desk. I would encourage you to go out and look at our sales tax trend. I understand the concerns, but please keep in mind is what you're looking at is you're looking at information based upon 4 months, including one very bad month of when we had a blizzard. If indeed the council, and it is absolutely at their discretion, to take this budget, to tear it apart, to start from scratch if they so desire. But it's inappropriate to ask the mayor to go back and revisit the budget. That is the role of the city council. That is their role. That is their responsibility under state statute. It is not the role of the mayor. I gave you what I perceived as a balanced budget, and all too often we talk only about the revenue side. And that's been the entire discussion tonight has been the revenue side. The problem is the fact that no one has talked about the expense side. The budget that I proposed to the council is a zero growth on the expense side. Revenue projections are exactly that. They are projections. They are a best guess. What's important is when the city council looks at the budget, you look at the expense side of the ledger. And the reason for that is once you establish what the budget is, the dollar amount of the expenses that you're going to approve for fiscal year 2010, that is a fact. That is an approved budget. The revenue projections are just that. They're revenue projections. They're a best guess. So, and I know that there again I editorialized, but the reality of it is that it's inappropriate to ask me to go back and look at cuts. If the city council members feel that it's appropriate to take a look at cuts, that is their responsibility under state statute to take a look at the budget and make any adjustments they wish. With that, I know that was a long editorial, but I thought it was important to yeah, go and gavel me out, Malcolm. I just wanted to make sure everyone understood the role of the mayor in the budgetary process and the role of the city council. And I think Alderman Chapman had it exactly right. It's not the role of the mayor to go back, and the other thing, we keep talking about direction to the mayor on the budget. That's not how it works. The mayor has a statutory requirement to provide a balanced budget to the council. The council has a statutory requirement to adopt the budget, to massage it, to tear it apart, to put it apart, to make cuts, to make additions, whatever they want. But there are two processes here because that's why there's a separation of power. Just like at the state level. The governor proposes his budget, he gives it to the legislature, they do whatever they want with it. It's the same process here. The mayor proposes his budget, and then the council's responsibility is to take that budget, and if they want to start from scratch, they have every authority to do so. With that, let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. So far, what I've gathered here tonight so far is that Mr. Preston is going to have those numbers of zero present to the budget at the hearings, is from my understanding. And there's been a motion to be thrown this on and directing the mayor to changes. I think that's too early. I think we haven't even sat down with our department heads and had discussions with them. We haven't gone through any of the process yet, and I think that's too early. I think you guys have good questions. I think your point's getting to where you wanted to go. You're going to see those numbers at the zero, so that gives us something to look at. We need to have that sit down with our department heads, have that discussion, that one-on-one, to see where they're at with their budgets and ask some questions. and go to that point. But I think we really need to move on here today, because I think it's accomplished what everybody's wanted. We got the questions answered, and we're understanding things. And I think, if I remember, the motion on the floor is just to do,
A 0-0-0,
just to show the numbers, so
to show the numbers.
not to send the budget back.
To be honest with you, that'd be an inappropriate motion, because
Yeah,
quite
so,
honestly,
okay.
the council doesn't have the ability to
Okay,
direct the
so
mayor to
I think
change
it's
his budget.
accomplished what we wanted to see. We wanted to have both those numbers to compare it to, and I think that's what the council's gonna have. And so with that, I would suggest that we move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Just a couple of things. I thought we were getting the zero growth, what Sam asked for before the budget, so we could look at it, because some of us wanted it early, not at budget time. And the other thing was, I thought this was a team. The mayor proposes the budget, but I think if the council is going to change some of that, they're going to have to work with the mayor as a team, because if the council wants changes in the mayor's budget, I know it's state statute for him to present one, but it's going to take the mayor, if we come back, if we want changes, to help us with that process. So it's still, whether it's state statute or not, you still need to have the mayor there as a team working with us to figure out in that direction where we're going. So I understood that. And just a couple of things. It seems like to me, we're going in the right direction, and the questions are early, but I don't think you need to take a budget from scratch. I think what happens is, a lot of times when I do a budget, I base it on priority, and if you have that priority down, then there really isn't a whole lot to cut. But if you don't, and I think in government sometimes what we do is a lot of the wish lists and the want lists instead of the have-tos. So a lot of times if you look at those budgets, whether it be mine or anybody else's, those can be cut just by a have-to or a want list. And if we do these things, and being in government for 4 years and watching how some of the stuff we spend money on, it seems like they're more want things than have-to things. And based on priority of department heads, a lot of times we don't see that. And if we had that, I think during budget time or during the year, that would be a lot easier to make decisions that would be more positive, and that would be easier for them to cut at the end, because we would have priorities, and so would they, based on what is the have-to list and not what we're all adding. So long story short, I think this can be a team effort. We can get some of these questions beforehand and then base it on that. I think the mayor is, I'll just say this, is trying to work with us in a sense, but sometimes he doesn't know that direction as well. So I think if we can give that direction a little bit earlier, I don't think we should start a budget in October. I think you have to see the numbers and start it maybe in January or February, just from listening to accountants and other things. That's how you start the budget. So some of the questions and some of the things we're doing, you got to remember how you run a business or how you do the business. You're going to have a hard time starting in October to figure out 2011's budget. So we might want to take that in consideration when we're thinking we need to start early. As council leadership, those might be some of the things we consider. But boy, this is a long discussion on this, but I do think we need to have things early.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Patty Martinson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. I'd like to point out that the 0-0 thing, it would be useful for comparison purposes, but I don't think we should stick to that so much as with mayor's number. When that's about an either-or situation, we're not going for the mayor's or straight to the 0-0. It's not an either-or proposition. It's just for a comparison. And I don't think Sam or anyone in this council has any better crystal ball than the mayor does. So the 0-0 is almost as arbitrary a number.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Ron Kroger.
I need to hit the right button. Thank you, Mayor. I got it. I guess first of all, I mean, we certainly need to have this discussion that we're having, but I'm really disappointed that we're having it tonight. I mean, the mayor passed out the budgets to us on Tuesday and Wednesday of last week. I've spent a little over an hour looking at the budget, and I'm certainly not ready to discuss it now. And I guess I'd like to have a show of hands from the council members who has spent more than an hour on the budget so far this year. That's good. It really is. But I think we've had a lot of rubbish going on and a lot of speaking that's going nowhere about this budget tonight and what we're looking for. You know, we've set, starting the 10th of August, to start this discussion. And I think that's where it needs to be. To pull stuff out of the clear blue sky during a council meeting and ask us to do this on a budget that no one's even talked about yet, I think is the wrong time to have the discussion. So I would hope we would move on. We've already got the information for zero growth, because all you got to do is use 2008 figures in the budget, and you can go through the budget and you can figure each department based on the 2008 budget number that you have for that department, is my understanding. That's the way I would do it. But nonetheless, you know, we need to have the discussion, but we're going nowhere tonight, and I think we wasted a lot of time. This is kind of like the discussion we had on the motorcycle parking. You know, Bill Wall left the council over 4 years ago. We were having the discussion when Bill left about how we need to plan for motorcycle parking prior to the motorcycle rally. It's the same discussion we're having in the budget tonight. It's going nowhere, so I would call the question. Thank you, Mayor. I know you're not supposed to have discussion and call the question, but I'd like to do that.
I don't see any additional lights. Are there any additional comments? Motion on the floor is to request information of what a 00 is. Yes, go ahead, Alderman Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know I've spoken a couple of times on this, but council leadership will, I think we will commit to coming to those budget hearings with that information, and I think it's unnecessary to try to direct to go and recalculate. We will come with those numbers or have a conversation with the finance office to bring those numbers of 00. And we will work with council members to provide whatever information that we think we need to make the best decision on behalf of the citizens of Rapid City. So I would hope that in the spirit of having a good conversation that the motion could be withdrawn.
Okay. Amber, just for the point of clarity, what was the original motion? I want to make sure I get this right. I'm not sure if it was, because if there's a word direct in there, or was it just request you bring information? Yes, please. I know your shorthand's so good.
It was that the 2010 budget be recalculated to assume a 0% increase in sales tax revenue for 2010 over 2009, 0% increase for 2009 over 2008.
Okay. So in essence, the motion would be asking, I assume, the mayor and the city finance officer to recalculate the budget at 00, which in essence would be changing the mayor's budget, just so everyone knows. Everyone clear on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Roll call, please.
Roger? Costello?
No.
LaCroix?
No.
Chapman? No. Martinson? No. Weifenbach? Waugh? No. Hadcock? No. Quaker?
Aye.
Olson?
No.
Motion fails on an 8-2 vote. Is that correct?
Right.
Very good. Okay, we will move on. Let's see. We do have a 59A, which was from Alderman Quaker, and that was to follow up on the issue of parking on Main Street and possible action. Alderman Quaker, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Because the council took action earlier in the evening regarding the north side of Main Street, I don't know that it makes sense to add more parking spaces on the south side. So so I said yield, see if my colleagues have any additional thoughts on it, but I'm not sure that we could do anything more with it at this point because we've added an additional block of parking earlier tonight on the north side.
Okay. Could we have a motion? Alderman Weifenbach, did you have a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do I mean to make a comment first, or can I make a motion?
Preference is you make a motion, but I'll give
I'd
you
make
latitude.
a motion to grant Ms. Jefferson the 3 parking spots in front of the Oasis.
Okay. Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
Second for discussion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Motion on the floor is to grant the 3 parking stalls on the south side of Main Street in front of the Oasis Bar. Is that correct, Alderman Weifenbach?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You still have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a little shame on myself here because This item came to the council, the last council meeting on a consent item for a denial. And I'm going back to some of the meeting minutes here, and the previous item, previous to it, was for the same thing, only in a different area. And I'll read it here. Item number 11, LaCroix moved to approve event permit for Uglies Inc., DBA Sports Rock for motorcycle parking from June 17, 2009 through September 2nd, 2009, which is about the equivalent of Ms. Jefferson's request of the parking spots for the 3rd through the 9th of August. But there is some concern here from the mayor that the mayor cautioned the committee that the request from the Oasis Bar for motorcycle parking in front of the business will create a real nightmare as far as enforcement. I'm not sure, and I'm assuming that the Legal and Finance Committee denied this on that concept, and I'm not exactly sure where the differences are, and I'm hoping that someone from Legal and Finance can explain to me why there's a difference in Ms. Jefferson's business versus the Sports Rock's business.
Thank you, Mr. Whitenbach. I can try and answer a little bit of what happened. At Legal and Finance, the Sports Rock, if I remember right, Mr. Allender, the event, the parking for on Wednesday nights first came forward and was approved, but we thought it was for one night or one time, and it ended up being he wanted it all summer long. And that's what the second request come back for, is for approval. So that was the second time to come back, and they asked for it for every Wednesday all summer long. I can only speak for myself. When I said it was, when I approved for it, was that it was on a side street on Apollo, and as when the mayor did make his comments, it was, he felt that if you take 3 spots, then you go down, you have 5 cars, 3 spots, 5 cars, you know, that was, I believe, his intention on his comments. If that helps at all, I can.
It really doesn't help me at all, because it's the only request I've seen is Ms. Jefferson's. I haven't seen any other ones, and I guess I would have a question for for the chief.
I'd refer to Mr. Allender.
My question, Chief, would be, is it easier to monitor 3 parking spots or 80? For making motorcycle parking for 3 spots or for 80 spots? And I mean, I'm not sure, I still don't understand.
Okay. Mr. Allender, please.
Thank you. In this particular case, I'd say it's probably easier to monitor 80 spots. They'll have some barricades up, we'll have some signage up. And one of the issues that came up with this request for 2 or 3 slots was be a daytime and a nighttime request when parking enforcement is going on. The Sports Rock request came beginning at 5 o'clock. And essentially, there's a very slim chance of getting a parking ticket anywhere. So those were the main differences, and enforcement was one of my concerns with the three spot.
Thank you, Mr. Allender. Mr. Whitemark, do you have a follow-up?
I'm still not sure I have a clear understanding. I think that our job as a council is to treat people fairly. I'm not sure that Ms. Jefferson has been treated fairly in her request. She came forward last year, as we had mentioned earlier, about planning, and some people who have been here for 4 years or 12 years or whatever talk about planning. Ms. Jefferson planned ahead. She was denied last year. She came back. She was told to come back early and apply. Nobody said anything about her having a problem. And all of a sudden she comes forward, she has a problem. Shame on me for letting this thing go through the consent calendar, but I trusted in the fact that there was a conversation that existed on this, and once I read it, I don't see how this can be fair in any way, shape, or form. And I want to caution my colleagues to reconsider this and allow her to have her 3 parking spots, and next year we can reconsider the whole, if this big an issue, we can reconsider the whole parking plan downtown. I don't see where 3 spots is a huge issue. I mean, it's too late now for anybody else to come in and request any spots for the rally. She went through this thing last year. She was told she was too late. She got her denial. She walked away, never said a word. Nobody ever said to her, we don't want you to have 3 parking spots in front of your Oasis because of the enforcement or any other issue. She was told because she was late, she didn't get the 3 parking spots. I would, you know, up or down, I'd like you guys to vote on it, and someone explain to me how this would be fair, that she gets turned down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitemark. Next I'll go, we have Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Or thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the key thing is trying, in that earlier discussion, there were a lot of information shared. And I think we now have I mean, if I had an opportunity to vote on the Sports Rock parking situation, I would probably vote no on that now. Not probably, I would. But I think we now have in place a solution to motorcycle parking, and I'm willing to live with that for this year. So I don't think we need to do any additional corrections to this. I think we have the best solution to a situation that has been less than perfect in terms of discussion and confusing information. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. Next, we'll go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
I think the chief just explained why we don't do 3 or 4 parking spots, that we do a whole side, that 80 parking spots is easier to enforce. I think we were fair to that whole side instead of just doing the Oasis, since that had came up, and she had made some key points to me that we wanted to make sure that we were being fair to the other people on that street too. And it seems like if they're across the street, they're still sufficient. Just from having business with parking across the street, it does work. I appreciated the council that they added that to it. I think it's going to make a difference. Sometimes it's hard when you're doing some of these events what to pick and choose, but all you can do is try, and we are trying our best to make it fair to everybody. We're not trying to pick and choose as a council how that works. Our events are good. They've made a difference for downtown, and that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to make everybody upset because they're not getting parking and stuff. So, Margaret, I hope this helps in a way where that side does help. Motorcycle enthusiasts, I think, will appreciate that we're trying to make a difference down there, and the council did. I think it is the best solution. I think by listening to the chief, he just said it. It's easier to do 80 than it is 3 or 4, and that I think it'll be successful. And I believe the chief and the traffic division will watch it, and they'll make a good decision. They have in the past on our events, and it's worked well. So I appreciate all the work that people have done down there.
Thank you, Ms. Hadcock. Next, we'll go to Alderman Ron Wyfenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to make one last ditch effort to try to convince you guys that this lady had not been treated fairly. And can we change her request to 80 parking spots? Will that question be for Mr. Green?
I don't think it's going to happen. I'll recognize City Attorney Jason Green.
Well, a request for reconsideration is not even in order because there was no notice at the prior meeting. You guys, my understanding is that the council has taken this up as an action item. So, you know, at this point, it's really up to the council and how you interpret your rules.
So we can do what we want to do? Come on, Mr. Okay. I'm just trying to, I'm being facetious, but the point is it's still the same. She asked for 3. It's simpler for her to control. It's not 80. It's not half a block. She's not affecting anybody else's business by asking for 3 spots. She went through the process that we have in place. People speak of the process. It just doesn't make sense. Ever since I've been on this council for 2 years, a little bit over 2 years now, people have told me the process, the process, the process. We have a lady that goes through the process and gets denied the first time. She comes back because she was told that she was late. Nobody ever spent any time to say, you need to ask for 80 spots, not 3. So Mrs. Jefferson, if this doesn't fail, come back and ask for 80 next year. I would like to have someone explain to me how this would be fair. So thank you, and I hope my colleagues will vote for this and give her 3 spots and make her happy for as she went through the process the way it's supposed to be done.
Thank you, Mr. Wyfenbach. The motion on the floor is to approve the 3 spots. Yes, it is. Motion on the floor is to approve the 3 spots on the 700 block south side. And that was moved and seconded. Any further discussion? I see Alderman Malcolm Chapman. I'll recognize Mr. Chapman. Vice President, Mr. Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess I went back and looked at the minutes, and I'm not sure as to the circumstances that the council approved the motorcycle parking for Uglies Inc. I'm having a hard time understanding why we did, I don't know how we did that. I disagree with that we did that. I'm not going to try to compound the mistake, but I tend to agree with Alderman Weifenbach that, and I don't like the word fairness because I think if we vote to approve this for Ms. Jefferson, then we might be the greatest council in the history of councils to her and terrible to others, so I don't know if there's any fairness anywhere. But I don't know how we did, I don't remember the circumstances surrounding this, why we did that. I will be voting in favor of Ms. Jefferson, even though I disagree with singling out businesses, putting spots in front of certain places and that. I think a better approach is to look globally and come up with some plan per street. I think that's the best solution, but I can't understand why we did this. I will vote for this, and this is not the way I make decisions, but I will vote for this simply because I voted for the one for Uglies. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. It was no motion on the floor is to approve the 3 spots on south side between 7th and 8th Street. Any further discussion? I'll recognize Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Chief, can you tell us on Uglies Incorporated why that was approved, and why would you think it would be a difference on the Oasis 3 or 4 spots?
I'll recognize Chief Steve Ellender.
Thank you. My recollection of the Uglies request was that this came at, it was for every Wednesday night, beginning at 5 o'clock. The understanding was, honestly, that these were spots that he would be able to designate motorcycle parking only, but practically there would be no enforcement of this. No one would come down and tow cars out of those spots. We don't have a process for signage for special parking. When it's a block, for example, we can, really is easier to control that block, to do the whole block. When you have a couple of spaces, people are going to move those. It's going to need constant attention. So back to the Sports Rock, it was because it was after 5 o'clock and no enforcement was promised on this seemingly easy process with the Oasis, and require a different level of enforcement. And also in that particular Legal and Finance meeting, that was at the first Legal and Finance meeting where we had started to see event permits that were contradicting each other, that were overlapping onto each other. So there's been an increase in these type of things, and that was the mood that I sensed from the committee that day, that this is kind of getting out of hand.
So we're not really picking and
Ms.
choosing,
Hadcock.
sorry, for spots. What we did, it was common sense. I thought that's what I heard when I made the decision back then, and having parking meters and stuff after 5, there is no enforcement. So it makes it easier. So we're not picking and choosing in a sense where we listened to the chief. We came up with the decision based on after 5 o'clock and how those events came to pass. So I think we made a good decision. I think we're trying to be fair. Again, we did put it on the north side, and we are sufficing, there's 3 bars on that area, so it will help the Radisson and some other areas that actually are going to use that parking. So we're not just doing it for the Oasis, we're trying to be fair to that side and that area. And for the Sports Rock, I believe as well, after 5 is what I was getting, and that the chief made a good decision by telling us that, because it seemed like common sense. So thank you, Chief, for your information.
Thank you, Ms. Hadcock. Next, for some discussion, I'll recognize Alderman Bill Wall.
Thank you, Mr. President. I remember this same discussion when I was on Legal and Finance back in 04, 03. And I think we talked back then about coming up with a master plan for motorcycle parking. I'm a motorcyclist. When I go somewhere, I look for motorcycle parking. And we've never come up with a plan. I think what we've done tonight by putting 80 consecutive parking places with a barricade at the end of each block is probably a good step. singling out one business and giving them 3 parking places is not a good step, and I will be voting against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wall. Any further discussion? Motion on the floor is to approve the 3 parking spots on the south side between 7th and 8th Street. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor indicate by saying aye. All opposed?
No.
Amber, can we take a roll call, please?
Costello,
No.
LaCroy,
No.
Chapman, Martinson, Wyffenbach, Wah, Hadcock, Quaker,
Aye.
Olson, Broger. That's 6-4, or 4-6. Fails, yes.
Motion fails 4-6. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for the discussion. We're on to item number 59B, which is discussion on executive session policy. Alderman Quaker, this is yours. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I know the hour is late. I will keep my comments brief. The main reason I put this item on the agenda is I wanted to talk a little bit about item 87 and my concern about going into executive session to discuss that item. But because I was going to talk a little bit beyond that particular item, I added a separate item on the agenda so that I could express my concern. A couple of concerns I would like to express, and I think that it's time that the council have a full discussion on this, probably at an upcoming committee meetings. One would be when we come out of executive session, there's often a motion that's put on the floor to approve per the direction or discussion in executive session. However, we have no institutional memory really of what that direction was. There are no notes or minutes taken in executive session. I realize that one of the reasons we do not do that is because state law does not protect those minutes. However, in many other states for many years, executive sessions, closed-door sessions have been well documented, and the laws of those various states protect those minutes, and that can only be pierced under certain circumstances. I think it's important for the institutional memory that we try to proceed in that direction, and that means working, I think, with our friends in the Municipal League to try to find a way to enable us to document what occurs behind closed doors so several years later we remember. Just in the last few weeks we've had some discussions that I know were discussed 3, 4, 5 years ago. I do not remember all the details of those discussions 3, 4, 5 years ago, and it would have been very helpful to have had that information. The last point I'd like to make is I think it's too easy to veer. It becomes very easy to veer into a policy discussion. For the most part, we've been pretty good about that. I think, though, on item 87, we're slipping into a territory we probably shouldn't slip into, and that is discussing the purchase agreement for a lot on Skyline Drive in executive session. I think we're now at the point of discussing policy and whether or not we want to do this. I don't think it makes sense to have that debate behind closed doors. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no action, we'll move on to item number, whoops, I am sorry. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Jason, do other states have minutes for their executive sessions for councils?
Yes, other states, some other states have provisions for taking minutes, but as Alderman Quaker indicated, there are very specific provisions on what's kept, how it's protected, and under what circumstances it can be made publicly available. My advice remains that under South Dakota law, that should not be the council's practice. If the council wants to go down that road, you should seek a change in state law.
Thank you, Jason. I guess some of what Sam is saying is correct. Previous information, like people that are coming into the council and stuff, they don't have privy to what we said before. So it is very hard if you haven't been privy to that information before, and then you come in the middle of something and now you're making a decision. We have a road that we've been going on for, I don't know how many years, so not everybody knows about the road. So I'd like to know what we could do, and have been thinking that for a long time, what we can do to make sure we have some of that information that we know, and had in previous executive sessions for people coming in, and then some of us don't remember all that information. So how we do that, is there anything that we can do, Jason, that would make that a little more simplified without breaking codified state law?
Jason Green, City Attorney.
Actually, I'd like to ponder that question a little bit, and especially in light of the new open records law. I'd hesitate to give an answer to that, but at this point, I'd say it's possible there might be something, but I can't put my finger on it right now.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. And then just some of the stuff that we do talk about in executive session. I'll have to say that some of it seems like we could talk about out here, but you are the lawyer and you do know your stuff, so I will respect that, and I believe that. I should say it like that. The other thing is, when we do come out of executive session, I think it would be easier if the public, when you're telling executive session stuff, or where we're going in the direction, when we come out, we all don't really sit down. We just kind of, okay, pass executive session. If I had to listen to what we're saying up there, I'd have no idea what we're talking about. And if we're trying to give a public a direction or what we're even doing out here, some of what Sam is saying is true. We have to do it somewhat differently, where if you were listening to that, you'd have a direction of kind of where we're going or what we're doing. Sometimes I don't even understand it, what we just said. So maybe we could do a little bit better at that too, Jason. Just to give it a little bit more. I know we can't tell some things, but just a little bit more of what it is really about. So just a couple comments that maybe want to work on. Maybe.
Yeah, that may be a very good question. I believe we have Scott Schweer coming. Does anybody, Kevin or Jason, do you have the dates?
I think next week.
Next Wednesday? I think that would be a very good question to ask. He's basically one of the attorneys from the AG's office, Attorney General's office. I'm sorry, what date? 29th? So next Wednesday.
And thank you,
A week
Mayor,
from
for
Wednesday,
bringing
yep.
Scott Swear here. I think we'll have some questions for him, and I think some of those are good, but if Jason can see if he knew some of that stuff, that maybe we could add to it.
Yep.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Will do. Let's go to Patty Martinson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I guess with Jason, we consult with the Attorney General and then possibly make recommendations to the council based on that, of what can be done better as far as the executive sessions in light of open records law as well.
Jason Green, City Attorney.
I can certainly report back to the council.
Okay, very good. Seeing no further lights, we will move forward. We have a 59C, and I'm going to go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix, I believe, put this on the agenda. This is the Oglala Sioux Tribe's request for, I believe, sponsorship.
Thank you, Mayor. At agenda review this morning, the mayor said this might come forward. And in talking with Kevin Yellowbird, I've added it on the agenda. They're asking for some funding to help sponsor the powwow on Pine Ridge. And I just want to say the last part of the comment for the motto for the powwow is honoring the four circles. Also with the president's theme of unity, peace, and understanding. And with them being our sister city, I really highly encourage that we help sponsor this powwow. They give out over $70,000 worth of prizes. They get the communities together. They get the schools to all come to one area, have the powwow, and give out gifts, and so forth. I'm going to ask Kevin to give us a little update on this, if he could. But and believe me, folks, council members, they know that they need to go to the subsidy committee. Now they do know. They didn't know that beforehand. Otherwise, they would have, because this is 24th annual. They would have followed the subsidy committee procedures if they knew it. This is the first time they decided to come to the council and ask for our participation and ask us to work with them. So I guarantee you next year it will go through the subsidy committee through that route. But at this time, I guess that I'd like to ask Kevin a question.
Go ahead, please.
Maybe I'm asking for a little more leniency than a question.
Give it a try, we'll see how far you get.
Kevin, can you give us a little idea of how the powwow's going to work and where that money would go if we decided to sponsor the powwow?
And
Okay.
Kevin, there again for the record, if you just identify yourself for the record, please.
My name is Kevin Yellowbird Steele. I sit as the Vice President for the Oglala Lakota Nation Powwow Committee. What we do, I apologize, for coming so late. If we would have known the proper way on which way to go through the City Council and the Mayor's office, it was like the letters we would have brought out would have been a little lot earlier in the year. Sometimes we always get a late start on these things due to the time frame and everything, but what we do is we try to get out there to solicit the funding that would actually pay for some of our categories. We have a variety of different categories which come up within the powwow. We have an elders, golden age is 55 and older. We have the 3 categories, possibly 4 depending on what we do, how much money we can raise. They come up into like the traditional, the fancy, some of it's even jingle dress. We even have other categories such as we have the tiny tots, which is the youth. That was the theme of honoring the 4 circles, which is the 4 circles of life. You're starting with the babies, which is 1 circle. Then the next one is your youth, which is the elementary kids. Then the 3rd circle is your adulthood. Your 4th circle is your elderly. Those are the 4 circles in which we honor from the time you're born to the time you're elderly. So within all those categories, we've chosen, we each have the grass dance, the fancy, shawl. We have jingle dress, like mainly with the youth categories, we'll have the jingle dress and the fancy, which are really, faster than the, like for the tiny tots. Those kids, they're just babies, but they come in, and what we do is each child will receive $5 for just getting out there to dance. And that's an incentive for them to just kind of give that kid the courage to get back out there and do it again.
Okay. I got
Lloyd, you still have the floor, sir.
I just got one follow-up, Pine Ridge, and you got, the L&I gives the city so much in hosting the basketball team. I think this is the least we can do. I'd hope my council members would respectfully honor that this would be a one-time deal, and they'd follow the process through that. And with that, I would make a motion to take to sponsor the powwow for $5,000 and take it out of council contingency.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve an expenditure of $5,000 for a sponsorship for the powwow. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Just a question, do we ever, on the sister cities, did we ever give cash flow to any of the other sister cities to help them with any of their sponsorships or anything of their needs?
There is a small line item for the sister cities, both Apalda and Nico City. I can't remember, but we've been doing it for a number of years. I can't tell you the exact dollar amount. It seems to me it's less than $1,000 a year, I believe, per city.
Okay, and how long have we been doing that?
For years, long before I was on the council. I would say probably, I would assume that with Nico City, I believe, and just so you know, Nico City combined with another city, and someone help me out here, who's been around for a while. What was the name of the city before Nico City? Does anyone remember? They actually combined Imeiichi, Japan. And so on the Japan sister city, I bet we've been doing it for at least 15 years. And on the Apalda, that's more recent. I think we've been doing that for 10 years. Chief, do you remember? I'm looking at the police chief and the fire chief because we have that exchange rate. It's been 15, okay, so 15 years, okay.
And So there's, Mayor, if I could ask you a question, there's two sister cities besides these, or we have a total of 4, don't we? We added a new one, didn't we? The one in south.
Not yet.
I forgot the
So
name
what
of
you're
it.
talking about is
Yeah.
Suriname.
Yes.
We haven't actually entered an agreement. That's actually a unique partnership through the National Guard. It's actually not through the Sister Cities Association, which is very specific city to city. Suriname is more of a mentorship for Suriname through the National Guard. We don't have anything formally there, but we're moving that direction.
Where I'm going with this is maybe we wouldn't have to put in the subsidy item later, or if we did, put it in a sister city if they needed the 5,000 every year. The powwow is a very big event. I know many people come to this powwow, and it would be worth sponsoring some of it as a sister city to them at 5,000. It does bring many people here, and it brings a lot of money to Rapid City. So it seems like it would be easy to add that as a line item later, but or add it to the sister city budget, however we do that.
Just for a point of clarification, I believe the request is actually for the powwow actually in Pine Ridge, not the Black Hills powwow, which is actually the Civic Center.
So I'm in the wrong area.
But this one, it's still a very big powwow.
Okay, and there's still a sister city.
Yes.
So I think it's a good event, and I apologize for mixing them up, but I've been to many of powwows, and they are very exciting, and they do bring many people in. So I'm in favor of this, sir.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for our finance officer. We're talking about taking this money from council contingency. What's the balance in council contingency?
$130,000.
I'm sorry?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. $130,000.
Thank you. You know, I can support this motion. I would hope that we would give Mr. Yellowbird still the schedule for subsidy. I think that that's a proper place to go in the future. I traditionally don't vote for going outside of that subsidy process, but I do see that there's a relationship here. There's been talk about Nico and Apolda being sister cities and some relationship there. I would hope that this would help kickstart a better relationship, that there could be some mentoring going back and forth, and there would be a better relationship, that we would honor and we would do the same things that we do with our other sister cities, and we do that right here in the chambers as well. I support the motion on the floor, and good luck with the powwow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Patty Martinson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a clarification, the subsidy committee, is my understanding that money would be donated to nonprofits, not tied to any specific event.
The way the subsidy committee works is it's split 50-50. There's approximately $200,000 a year placed in the subsidy committee. Half of it is for the performing arts. The other is for basically needs. And so this would probably fall under, I would imagine, probably the performing arts side of things. So the $200,000 split 50-50, and basically what you have is you have a committee made up of folks that are interested in the performing arts that will bring recommendations from the art side, and then there's a subsidy committee which is made up of the mayor, the council leadership, I think Barb Garcia. There's a number of us sit on there, and we talk about the other 50%, which is the need side.
Okay, because I was questioning it because I brought up to the council attention about the Miss Wheelchair America. I was wondering how that situation was different, and this gentleman, we have no objection to council deciding to give money to this organization, but I wanted to make sure that, you know, and this comes again, that all organizations' events are treated, you know,
Absolutely.
fairly.
Very good point. Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Ron Ron Kroger. Too many Rons.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sure it's a very good event, and it's really tough. But I tell you what, an hour ago we spent probably 45 minutes on an item regarding the budget that really wasn't on the agenda tonight, and I heard discussions of being anywhere from $300,000 to $1 million plus short in our budget for this coming year because of sales tax revenue. So, after we've had those discussions, I'm not going to turn around and take $500 or $5,000 out of council contingency. Actually, just within the last 2 weeks, we took around $300,000, I think, out of unencumbered cash for snow removal. So, not to say that the need and stuff is not good, But at this point in time, it sounds like we have some struggles of our own, and so I'm not in favor of doing that. And I would just hope that you'd come through the committee when it comes forward this fall and make that request at that point in time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any additional comments? I see no additional lights. Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Roll call, please.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Chapman, Martinson, Wyffenbach, Wah, Adcock, Quaker, Olson, Broger, Costello.
Aye.
Motion passes on a 6-4 vote. Is that
Right.
correct?
Yes.
Thank you for the discussion. Thank you for coming in.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to continuing our dialogue.
Thank you, council members.
That does take us to item number 60. Let's see, award quotes. Alderman Quaker, could you read that in, please?
Item number 60 is to award informal quote for East Quincy Street sanitary sewer extension project, emergency repair. Move to award the informal quote to Warax Excavating, Inc. for $22,750.
60.
60.
Do we have a second, please? We have a motion and a second to award the informal quote based upon emergency circumstances. Fair enough? Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. Thank you, everyone. That does take us to the public hearing items. This is items 60 through 84. Chair would look for a motion to open the public comment period for items 61 through 85. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. I do have a speaker request form from a Mark Carta, item number 67.
Thank you. My name is Mark Sarda. I'm with Black Hills Power. I'm the manager of...
Just so you know, for clarification, the recommendation is to continue this item to the August 3rd.
I understand that. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
very good.
I'm the manager of transmission and distribution engineering for Black Hills Power, and I just wanted to speak regarding this item. I know we've had a lot of discussions already to this point with the city meeting, public input meeting, prior council meeting, et cetera. We've been working with the Public Works Department on this, and at the July 6th council meeting, several of the homeowners came forward and talked about the proposed wall at that time. And they made comments regarding the fact they didn't want to see a chain link fence, they didn't want to see a solid wall. Several of them proposed that we look at a wrought iron type fence that is similar to what the Quota Supply Group has on East Boulevard. And so we went back and submitted a new proposal to Public Works regarding covering the entire property, the entire substation perimeter with a wrought iron type fence, similar to what was proposed by the public at that time. And so in addition to the new proposal, we also kind of looked at some of the concerns that the public had when they came forward at the last council meeting regarding heat collection of a concrete wall, drifting of snow behind a wall, views to the hills through a solid barrier, air movement and circulation because of wind circulation, et cetera, to particular properties, just the concrete look not fitting into the surrounding areas, et cetera. And I guess, with that in mind, we came back to the Public Works with this new proposal on that type of fence. And we also looked at, the safety issues within the public trying to access from the outside into the property and protecting the equipment based on the National Electric Safety Code. So I think, we do understand that this is just the first step in the process of getting anything actually finalized and constructed on the site. But I guess Black Hills Power is asking the council at some point to approve the fence height exception as proposed and how we submitted to the council our last proposal so we can actually get the process approved, just the fence. That's what's before the council, so we can get this back in the Planning Commission and Public Works and for the rest of the process. So I appreciate you guys' time. I know it's getting late, but I just wanted to speak on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Next speaker request form we have is from Michelle Snow. On item 84, she's from 807 Sagewood Street.
Yes.
If you could just please identify yourself, Michelle, and address for the record. Well,
Okay, my name's Michelle Knoll. I'm at 807 Sagewood Street, and I'm applying for an exception to the fence height requirement. I would like to install a 6-foot privacy fence around my backyard, both to contain my dog and to have a reasonable amount of privacy. My property is located on the corner of Sagewood and Kyle Street. So the ordinance states that there's a 25-foot setback from Kyle Street before 6 foot is allowed. That 25 foot is a large portion of my backyard. That's the side property. Since I have a townhome, I don't have property on the other side of my house, so this 25 foot is a major part of my yard. The Growth Management Department has recommended denial of my request, with the reason being the location of the 6-foot fence in close proximity to the sidewalk and public right-of-way may result in a negative visual impact for surrounding neighbors or vehicles traveling along Kyle Street or pedestrians traveling along the sidewalk. I don't see that there are any restricted views for my neighbors or for the traffic except what blocks my backyard. But as this is a concern for the Growth Department, I am asking the council to consider to approve a 6-foot fence placed 10 foot back from the sidewalk instead of right along the sidewalk. And this should eliminate the concerns of restricted views and still allow me to fence a majority of my backyard. I would also like to stress the fact that the Growth Management Department has noted that there's no conflict with the vehicular or pedestrian site triangle on the corner of Sagewood and Kyle Street, as my fence will be placed significantly back from the corner in the area behind my home. The Rapid City Municipal Code states that a variance to the fence height requirements can be granted by the City Council if the exception is not contrary to public interest and the exception will not be injurious to the surrounding neighborhood. And I believe my request meets these requirements, conditions. I ask the council to give my request serious consideration. I would be happy to answer any questions or address any concerns the council may have, and I thank you for your time.
thank you, Michelle. And thank the rest of the audience for sticking with us all night. Mayor.
We do not have any additional speaker request forms on items 61 through 85. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak to any item 61 through 85 inclusive? If not, we will move on. And just a reminder, we do need to leave the public hearing open during this portion of the meeting. So I will ask for items, we're on to the continued public hearing consent items. This is 61 through 67. I have a note here that nothing to be pulled from the staff. Does anyone wish to have any items 61 through 67 pulled from the continued consent public hearing calendar? If so, please turn on your light. If not, the chair would look for a motion to approve the continued public hearing consent items 61 through 67, per the recommendation. I believe these are all being continued to the August 3rd meeting.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. That does take us to the end of the consent public hearing consent items. Chair would look for a motion to close the public hearing on items 61 through 85.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. We are on to the consent public hearing items 68 through 78. And I have a note here. There is a request to pull 74, 76, 77, and 78 from the consent calendar. Is that correct, Marcia? Okay. Is any other items 68 through 78 besides those four that we need to be pulled? If not, the chair would look for a motion to approve the consent public hearing items 68 through 78 inclusive, with the exception of 74, 76, 77, and 78.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. It appears that items 74, 76, and 77 all need to be continued to the August 3rd meeting. Chair would look, thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to continue items 74, 76, 77, 78, all to the August 3rd City Council meeting. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That does take us to the end of the consent public hearing calendar. We're on to the non-consent public hearing items, items 79 through 85. Item number 79, Alderman Quaker, could you please read that in, please?
Item 79 is second reading of ordinance 5523, an ordinance amending 17.06, the municipal code for rezoning within the described property requested by Rising Properties LLC from medium-density residential to general commercial on lots 15 and 16 of Block 10 of the Foreman Addition located at 727 Fairview Street. Yield to the floor.
Do we have a motion, please?
Move for approval.
We have a motion, I think a second. We have a motion and a second for approval of second reading ordinance 5523. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. Two questions, Marcia. One, was there any opposition from the neighbors? And number two, does this involve a planned development designation?
Marcia?
And that's been filed and is approved contingent on approval of the rezoning. In terms of objections, I had one conversation with an individual who appeared here at a previous meeting, unrelated item, who had some concerns.
Okay, Alderman Quaker, you have the floor, sir.
That's all.
Very good. Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 80, please.
Item 80 is a request by Mona Droll for Ups of Downs Family Support Group for a special exception to flood area construction regulations to allow temporary structures in the floodplain located at Memorial Park Van Shell. Move approval with stipulations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval with stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 81, please.
Item 81 is a request by Rapid City Convention and Visitors Bureau for a special exception to the flood area construction regulations to allow temporary structures in the floodplain located at the Memorial Park Van Shell. Move approval with stipulations.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval with stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 82, please.
Item 82, a request by Olson Development Company, Inc. for a vacation of section line highway of the south 495 feet and the unplatted portion of related section located at 2000 Golden Eagle Drive. Move approval with stipulations.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval stipulation. Item number 82. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 83, please.
Item 83 is a request by Fisk Land Surveying and Consulting for Tom Rao and Dana Vogt for a vacation of right-of-way located at 2809 and 2812 Frontier Drive. Move approval with stipulations.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval stipulations. Item number 83. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 84, please.
Item 84, in the CHMH subdivision, a request by Michelle Knoll to consider an application for a fence height exception to allow a 6-foot fence in lieu of a 4-foot fence in the low-density residential zoning district, more generally described as being located at 807 Sagewood Street. For the sake of discussion, I'll offer a motion to approve with the stipulation that the fence be 10 feet back.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the fence heights exception with the stipulation that it will be 10 feet back from any front yard setback. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
I was trying to take my name off there real quick. I think we got the right motion on the floor, so I don't have anything to offer.
Okay. Any further discussion? Motion on the floor is for approval with stipulation that a 6-foot fence shall be 10 feet back from any front footage. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes with 1 no from Alderman Bill Waugh. Very good. Item number 85.
Item 85 from the Airport Edition is a request by Scott Goebel for SWS LLC to consider an application for a fence height exception to construct an 8-foot high fence in lieu of a 6-foot high fence, and to allow an 8-foot high fence in the front yard setback in lieu of a 4-foot high fence in general commercial zoning district located at 232 Wright Street. I yield to the floor.
We have a motion, please. Was that with stipulations per recommendation? Thank you. Okay, very good. So the motion on the floor is for approval of stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I need to abstain from this. I'm not sure if I need to, but on the safe side, I'm going to abstain from this item as my employer is a wireless provider.
Okay, very good. We'll make sure that we note that. Any further discussion? Motion on the floor is for approval of stipulations. Seeing no further lights, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes with Alderman Quaker abstaining. Mr. Preston, the bill list.
Thank you, Mayor. The bill list totals $6,038,906.25. I need to add 3 items. One is the miscellaneous improvement projects for 2009, change order number 1 final for $8,265.82, and that's with KRM Concrete. Second one is with Site Work Specialists, Rand Road Drainage, $172.50. That's change order number 2 final. And third one is True Form Construction, Downtown Pavement Repair, change order number 3 final, $5,544.10. New total, $6,052,888.67.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of the bill list as amended, totaling $6,052,888.67.
Correct.
Discussion on the motion. Let's go to Alderman Ron Kroger.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a question for our finance officer, if I may.
Go ahead, please.
Jim, are we paying any of this through our reserves or unencumbered cash?
Let's go to
thank
Jim
you, Mayor.
Preston, City Finance Officer.
We are paying it through our budget. As you know, when we put a budget together, it includes our reserves, but we also include some unencumbered cash that we use to, as part of that. It's hard to say that how that's all broken out. It calls one pot.
Mayor, if I may, maybe I asked it probably wrong. Are we paying it out of reserves or unencumbered cash that we're not authorizing the budget?
No, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Any further discussion? Motion on the floor is for approval of the budget totaling $6,052,888.67. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Executive session, Mr. Green.
Yes, and it would be for the purposes permitted by SDCL 1-25-2.
We have a motion and second to go into executive session for the purposes as permitted by SDCL 1-25-2. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion passes with 1 no from Alderman Quaker. We're in executive session. On executive session, any discussion on that motion? Aaron Costello? That's all right. I sort of wanted to go home. All those in favor of coming out of executive session signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're out of executive session. Mr. Green.
I believe you have another item on your agenda, item
87. Let's see. Alderman Quaker, could you please read that in for us, please? Item number 87.
Item 87 is a request to authorize mayor and finance officer to sign real estate purchase agreement with Robert J. Burgard and Diane E. Burgard for property on Skyline Drive. I yield to the floor.
Yep, could we have a motion, please? Okay, we have a motion and a second to deny. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason I don't support this is the fact that in reference to earlier comments about shortfalls in money and budgets, and the other item that funding sources, priorities and funding sources, I believe that there's higher priorities for the city of Rapid City. So I do not support this.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Alderman Aaron Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to echo Alderman Weifenbach's statements. I've been in favor of this from the moment I heard it all about more parkland. However, I also believe that the timing needs to be right. and the timing is not right in my mind. So I will also be against this.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Same reason, priorities. I think we need to base right now on priority lists. We have Storybook Island, that sounds like they're gonna need some 50,000 for some repairs. Has been put on the CPI list from the mayor. And based on priority and other things to take care of right now, I also believe it's a nice piece of land, but based on the budget, I'm in favor of not getting this land.
Okay, motion on the floor is for denial. Any further discussion on that motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion to deny signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. The item is denied. Don't see anything else? We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.